It's time for Twit This Week in Tech. Great show for you today. Harry McCracken is here from Fast Company. Lou Maresca, former host of Twiat. Lou works now, he has for some time at Microsoft. He's in charge of Excel Copilot plus Python. We'll talk a little bit about that. It's fascinating. Also, she's on her way to the last Taylor Swift Eras concert tonight, but Christina Warren is going to make an appearance. We're so glad to have her. Lots to talk about. Silicon Valley's billionaires are moving into the White House. Is that good? I think it might be. The new NASA director is all about space exploration. The 12 days of OpenAI, and now Google can predict the weather better than the best weather prediction systems in the world. Plus, John Wayne can read you your bedtime story, all that and more. Coming up next on Twit.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Twit, This Week in Tech, episode 1009, recorded December 8th, 2024. Andy Giveth and Bill Taketh away. It's time for Twit, This Week in Tech, the show where we cover the great news of the week, the tech news of the week, with my dear friends, every one of them a dear friend, but this is a special occasion because Christina Warren is here. Above and beyond, Christina. First of all, I said, is that really your backdrop? And she said, yes. That is not fake. Christina, where are you?
I'm in Vancouver, British Columbia. I'm in Canada. I am a couple hours away from going to the very final Taylor Swift Eras Tour show.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
The last one. Oh, come on. She's going to add another leg.
No, this is it. This is it for this tour. So this is going to be,
this is huge.
Record-breaking tour. Yeah, this is huge. This is, almost 200 shows and just craziness.
The world economy is going to tank now that she's not bringing all of that money into the ecosystem.
I mean, honestly, Vancouver, it was wild. At the airport, when I landed, they had all kinds of stuff up in the airport. The flight attendants were getting in on it when we were flying out this morning. The whole downtown area, there's
it's a big
like
deal
stuff
everywhere.
Yeah, like they know what this is doing in terms of what income it's bringing in, and they are embracing it big time.
Yeah. Well, you've got a nice hotel room. Do you think that this will certainly be at the end of it, teary and special? Yes.
Yeah. I mean, otherwise I wouldn't have, I thought about it. I was like, do I want to go? No, I'm not going to go.
Yes,
this is dumb. This is dumb.
Come on.
Well, I was in Korea 2 days ago. So that was part of it. I was like, am I going to be able to stay awake? Am I going to be able to be alive? And then I was like, my mom was the one who was like, just do it. You will regret not going. So
exactly. You would be sitting there sad.
Yeah,
I'm so glad
I'd be
you're
watching
going
on TikTok, and I'd be very sad that I wasn't there. So
we're going to get through this and get you there.
Thank you.
Fourth time, so you know
time.
what you're going to see. It's not going to be a surprise.
No. It is a different set list than when I saw it last year, but I've seen it, online.
Do they still roll her out in a janitor cart to get her to the stage, or is that everybody knows that now?
No, yeah, they all know that, but she comes out in like various ways. They have all kinds of
different methods because the stage is surrounded by people, so they have to get her there sneakily. Otherwise, everybody say, "Oh, I'm so happy for you. We're going to get this done fast, just for you, Christina. I'm going to get you out of here in an hour and a half. It'll be the shortest Twitter in the last 20 years." Harry McCracken is also here. Always great to have Harry on. Fast Company, and we're working to get Harry a big following on Blue Sky. How many people do you have on Blue Sky now?
I have like 5,500 or something. So I've been on it for a while, but I didn't really dedicate.
You're not going to get Twitter numbers. Do you think you're going to get Twitter numbers?
Well, you don't. One of the great things about these other social networks is you don't need Twitter numbers to get something that's a lot better than Twitter. I think in terms of people commenting on my stuff and likes and whatnot, I've already surpassed present day Twitter with a fraction.
Isn't that awesome?
Yes.
Yes. Well, we're going to get you to 10,000 tonight.
Done.
That's what we're going to do. Everybody follow. HarryMcCracken.com is his official handle on Blue Sky. I'm LeoLaporte.me. So yeah, I understand what you're doing there. That's a nice thing about Threads. What are you, Christina? We might as well give you a plug.
I'm filmgirl.bsky.
that
app or whatever it is. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's Film Girl, one word, because they don't do underscores, unfortunately. So it's Film Girl, one word. I have a bunch of domains. So I'm probably going to wind up mapping it. Yeah. And I thought about doing that, but then I'm going to have to probably still squat on the old one. Is because I've been on Blue Sky.
I think it keeps your, I think you keep everything. I changed it.
I think so.
You
I
can
don't
switch.
think it, you could switch.
I was Harry McCracken at bsky.social at first.
Yeah.
Lou Maresca is also here, another dear
indeed.
friend, longtime host of This Week in Enterprise Tech, and a huge Taylor Swift fan.
Oh, you know it. I travel far and wide for Taylor Swift.
He's in the bus following the band. Principal engineering manager for, hey, this is good, Excel Copilot. You're on the hot seat these days. That's awesome.
We are.
You were Excel, but you've now kind of specialized in the AI portion.
Yes, I was on the Office platform group. So this is a group like doing all the programming interfaces within Office. And then we kind of rolled into Excel Copilot for Excel and Python. So my team focuses on the Python side of things.
Nice.
Yeah, it's fun.
Really cool.
Really fun. Yeah.
I have lots of questions, but we'll get one question we're going to flatten. 2 weeks ago, Steve Gibson on Security Now followed along with a lot of blogs railing against Microsoft because it seemed that they were going to start using your personal content to train their LLMs. I talked to Paul Thurrott and Richard Kimmel immediately in the show the next day, and they said, "Oh no, it's always said this is not going to. We're not training our LLMs on it." But the following week, this past week, Microsoft made very clear. We have never and will not use your personal content to train our LLMs. They wouldn't want to. They won't. They don't want my personal.
No, I mean,
let's get real.
That's your organization's content, right? I think
that's the biggest thing. It would kill business, right?
Right. Yeah, I think we focus a lot on synthetic data, and we generate synthetic data that actually is relevant to the things that we're trying to do for inference, and it actually allows us to really fine tune these things to whatever we want. So we don't need people's data.
There you go. Yeah. Steve backed it down, which I was glad because I think that's been pretty clear. By the way, Christina, thank you. I got my GitHub Universe name badge.
Yes. I'm
which
so
is a
glad.
Pie-Maroni. Yeah. That's 3 years in a row now. Thank you.
Yes. Well, we love you. We love you. And if anybody else wants to buy those, we've actually, for the first time ever, put those up on the githubshop.com. And so we still have some. So you can go to the githubshop.com if you want to get your own hackable badge.
It's a processor, by the way. I love the circuit board, but it's a processor. So you can plug into it and modify it, change it. It's got switches. It's a Pie-Maroni, so you can
exactly. You can plug in a screen, battery, a whole thing. So by default we have that LED screen, but if you wanted to put in like a color screen or something, it has the outputs to do that. You can connect it to a battery if you want to be able to change things on the fly. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Maybe I'll put Tetris.
Or you can put Doom on it. People have put Doom on it actually.
That's great. And you're supposed to wear that around your neck at the GitHub Universe.
Yeah. Or you can use it at any other conference you want to go to. I mean, obviously, you can just make it say anything you want.
The first one I got to have my Twitter handle and account on it. I don't think this one does. Oh, it does. It has Twitter. Well, I'm at Leo Laporte everywhere. So, okay, that'll work. It's agnostic. All right. So I guess we should talk about the news. I've been putting it off. This election ended up being very interesting. Turns out Elon Musk, now with the FEC, information has come out, donated $250 million, or very nearly $250 million to President Trump's campaign. And he got a good payout. I think he got his money's worth because he is very much part of the transition team. New York Times story, I think a couple of days ago, actually says it's not just Elon, but it's Elon's buddies. And they are not just, doing DOGE, the Department of Governmental Efficiency. They are in on the interviews. Right at the beginning, Elon Musk and Larry Ellison of Oracle were house guests, went to the first transition meeting. I brought the 2 richest people in the world today, Trump told his advisors. What did you bring? And his mom, May Musk, has actually been in apparently on some of the meetings. So Elon brought his mom. He also brought a whole bunch of people, including this Jade Birchall. He's the head of Elon Musk's family office. He's been interviewing candidates for jobs at the State Department, even though that's not his bailiwick. FTC, FCC, Mark Andreessen is there. Of course, the guy who invented Netscape Navigator when he was a student at whatchamacallit in Illinois, and at the NCSA in Illinois. And let's see, who else? Sean McGuire, who is a Caltech PhD in physics and investor at Sequoia Capital. He's been interviewing candidates for Defense Department jobs.
David Sachs.
Well, and that's the big story. David Sachs, who spoke at the Republican convention, is the host of the All In podcast, is now the White House AI and crypto czar, despite the fact that he actually, as active as he is, he's a part of the PayPal mafia. He doesn't really have any active participation in an AI company or a crypto company. I guess that's good. I guess.
That we know of. All of this has done one thing for sure that we can see, which is propelled Bitcoin well over $100,000 a coin. This is good for crypto. Doge is up. Everything's up. Meme coins are up. Hak Tuah coin is up.
Not that one.
No, not that one. That one's up and then down, but that's another story. You think I'm joking? There actually is a Hawk coin.
No, I know, and it was they rug pulled everybody, right? Was that what happened?
Yeah, they dumped 90%, and she Haley Welch, who is the Hak Tuah woman, is getting a little controversy because she says I didn't do it, nor did my team do it, but somebody did. It was pumped up, launched on December 4th. At 10 p.m., quickly rose to a market cap of, get this, $490 million, then went down 91% in 3 hours. Kind of a classic pump and dump, I would guess. But who did it, we don't know, because it's a cryptocurrency.
Get rich quick.
This is her Hawkonomics slide deck. It's short and sweet. So she apparently didn't make any money on it, which just shows, she's not, I don't know what it shows.
A couple people did snipe it though. So somebody did make some money.
Somebody made a ton of money. Are you kidding? $490 million is.
I was going to say, somebody made money, and if she didn't, then she was a victim, as well as being used to, bring more people into the scheme. No, she's not. To be clear, she's not.
Victim,
except
really?
no. But if what she says is true, and who knows? I mean, she could have actually cashed out. Then in some ways, it's almost like, okay, she prey upon really dumb people who are not even going to be part of the rug pull that they're putting their reputation up to screw people over on. Reputation of the Hak Tuah girl.
Let's talk about a real coin, Bitcoin, or you could talk about all the others that have gained ETH and all the other stable coins and so forth. But let's talk about Bitcoin. Would you buy it today?
My investment in Bitcoin and Ethereum is finally up. Maybe 2 years ago, I spent $80 on cryptocurrency. I got those and a couple of other ones which are still down, but my $80 is finally up after 2 years of it being way down. So I'm rolling in dough, mainly from Bitcoin being at $100,000.
Yeah, congratulations! I have 7.85 Bitcoin. I cannot access.
Oh no.
We don't like to talk about this, Leo.
We don't like to talk about this.
But I don't think I would not buy a lot of Bitcoin personally.
But it's okay. So
it's gambling.
Okay. So the conventional wisdom is certainly what we've been saying for the last few years is because it's not tied to any real value. It's not even gold. It's not even silver. It's definitely not a company. It's just speculative. That when you buy it, it's purely speculative. There's nothing. It's whether people think it's worth whatever it's worth. which means it's risky.
As far as I can tell, it's pretty much a high stakes slot machine in terms of investing in it. And that's not a blanket statement about the idea of cryptocurrency, which I certainly don't dismiss out of hand in general. But like as an investment vehicle, if you have enough money that you don't care all that much whether it goes up or down, maybe. But
well, yeah, I mean, on the other hand, I could see being bullish right now in crypto, given what's happening in the new administration.
That is true. Yeah, we may be in for 4 years of cryptocurrency being looked on with a lot more positive vibes than it has over the past four, for sure.
My advice would be, if you do buy it, get out of it by January 20th, 2029.
Right. Right.
Right?
No,
because one of the things now I'm seeing Bitcoin advocates say is, oh, and by the way, as many companies have done, including Venezuela, always a paragon for us here in the United States, you should eliminate capital gains taxes on Bitcoin profits. Just don't tax them. Just let them all roll in. And I feel like that's the kind of thing we're talking about here. This is in a way all right. It almost feels like the scammers are now in charge of the country.
I mean, it reminds me of the 90s when a lot of people said essentially that the internet should not be taxed, which certainly did not last forever as an idea.
Right. That made a little more sense because you have a nascent technology. You want it to grow. You want Amazon and companies like it to do well. And then eventually you can tax it, as they did, sales tax and so forth. This though, why do we want Bitcoin to grow unless we're holding it?
I'm less of a skeptic here. I actually like the competition for banks because I'm not a big bank person, and so like having them have some level of competition that goes around this type of thing. There's actually data that shows like potential interest rates could drop because of it. There's a better efficiency when it comes to actually cryptocurrency, which would force kind of banks like Chase and some other banks to be more efficient. So I don't know. I'm hoping that this will somewhat push them in that specific direction. I'm sure there'll be some negatives, like there's volatility and impact on other smaller banks that are out there. But I do feel like there's going to be something. Like I feel like it's going to definitely push in some direction. I'm hoping somewhat positive.
If you're an optimist, I think it would be a good time to say, maybe this is all going to work out. The government's going to get much more efficient. Right. That Bitcoin is going to end up, maybe the US will create a digital coin itself, a stable coin that would then kind of, I don't know. I don't understand economics well enough to know what the impact of that would be. I don't think anybody does, to be honest with you.
It looks like we might end up with a cryptocurrency reserve, and I don't understand the implications of that.
President of El Salvador is very happy about his cryptocurrency reserve, right? You're happy until it collapses.
Right.
It's like, it reminds me a lot of Vegas, those beautiful big buildings. But then they always put up a billboard of the guy who won $1 million at the slots. What they don't show you is the 999,000 people who lost money at the slots to pay for that.
Right. Or how much did it cost that person, to win the million in some cases, right?
They don't ever talk about that, do they?
Yeah. But having said that, I'm kind of with Lou here. I'm certainly not bullish. And I'm certainly thinking if you don't have money to lose, then you shouldn't be investing in any of these things. But just being completely candid, I don't think that it's a bad idea to, talk with whoever handles your investments, or if you do it yourself, to look at diversifying into crypto if you're looking, for the next short term.
I'm not going to touch it. I just don't like something. I agree. I'm dumb. I mean, there's a lot of Bitcoin billionaires, a lot of them. A lot of that money went into the campaign in 2024.
Yeah.
So I'm obviously dumb, but I don't want to buy an asset that I don't understand why the asset is valued at what it's valued at. That it's just a random. To me, it's buying a lottery ticket.
Just don't put all of your retirement funds into crypto.
Well, that for sure.
Absolutely not.
Only put stuff you could afford to lose in it.
Exactly. Right? But even then, I all I'm saying is at this point, because just my own, like similar to Harry, I put $2,000 in a Robinhood account a few years ago. And a lot of that was in Doge when Doge was cheap. And then I didn't sell the Doge when it was at a really good price because my nephew had just been born. And I wound up being underwater on the investment for the better part of 3 years. It is now, I've had an 85% return. So I've made, money, so to speak, and it's a small amount. It doesn't matter, but it is one of those things that for me, I was like, okay, I put this money in just for fun, gambling genuinely. I now, with enough time has passed because of the changes that have happened for various reasons, I have a good return, but I certainly wouldn't stake my retirement or anything important on it. Right.
Yeah, my wife, well, every time we go to Vegas or Reno, she has $20. She says, I'm going to play this slots till it's gone. She's twice now won $600 and $900. So she's way up. Right. And now the temptation is then for me to say, wow, I got to get into this. This is great. You're making a mint out of this. But we know what the reality is. There's also, and I worry about Bitcoin, and maybe I'll address this to you because you're more bullish on it, Lou. But I worry that what Bitcoin has done is enabled ransomware,
yes,
and all sorts of crime because it is as close to untraceable, almost as close to untraceable as cash, and it's a lot harder to transfer $1 million in cash from your headquarters in Virginia Beach to Hungary, but it also costs a lot in terms of energy use. There are gas fees, even though Hak Tuah maybe hadn't invested in her own coin or wasn't doing insider trading. She made lots of money on the fees, right? Because there's fees.
Right.
And so all of these things and the speed with which a transaction happens is unpredictable. It's slow unless you pay more to the miner to validate it. Even though now they've got proof of work, so it's not as bad as it was. I think the whole thing has lots of negatives that people don't even know about or don't consider. They're mostly just saying, oh, but I could make so much money. I feel like we're promoting a technology that is not an ideal technology.
Not understood yet, too. I mean, that's you're calling all the negatives, and that all makes sense because I don't the Hak Tuah thing drives me nuts, right? Because
it's a perfect example.
It's a perfect example of just like other companies coming up with new AI ways of doing something stupid, right? Like I think this is another example of allowing somebody to go and create their own cryptocurrency, and then of course So I think that's the bad thing about it, right? I mean, there's got to be some level of correction that needs to happen, and
so maybe that's why government should get involved to regulate it.
And some of this stuff is solvable, or at least partially solvable, like the sustainability aspect. There's already been some progress with some cryptocurrencies, and there's a lot more that can be done. And there are startups working on it since the original way that the stuff was verified was incredibly energy efficient. But that's just not like a given for this whole idea.
Well, we'll find out because many considered anti-cryptocurrency chairman of the Fed. Of the SEC, Gary Gensler, will be replaced now by a guy named Paul Atkins. And he is, as far as we can tell, pretty pro cryptocurrency, right? And so while Gensler has been kind of saying, and I kind of agreed with him, cryptocurrencies should be regulated as securities. But the crypto community does not want it to be seen as a security. And I think that they're going to get their way with this new guy, Paul Atkins. President Bukele of El Salvador has now got a crypto treasury of $600 million from his initial investment in Bitcoin. Trump wants to do the same thing. He has said in the campaign trail, he said he wants to make the U.S. the crypto capital of the planet and create a similar strategic reserve of Bitcoin. Of course, if you hold Bitcoin, all of that is great news. It means your assets will go up.
Right.
Right.
But is it great policy?
Right.
I think the people who are looking at this aren't considering that. They're just saying, well, I don't care because I'm gonna make a mint.
I'll get mine. I don't understand. I don't understand, even if you're bullish on this stuff, I don't understand. I mean, other than the greed aspect, I don't understand why this would not be a security. That's the thing that I've never understood.
It seems to me that it is, and it should be.
I've never understood that argument.
You should have capital gains taxes on it, which you do currently.
Absolutely, yeah.
We are talking about a guy who went bankrupt running casinos, so I wouldn't put too much stock in his take on this whole thing.
Yeah. Well, so what's really interesting to me is it really looks as if, and I'd like to know what you think, President-elect Trump has handed over the transition to Silicon Valley, to the Silicon Valley billionaires. They have moved into Mar-a-Lago. They're doing the interviews. Elon is sitting in phone calls with Zelensky and others. There was a conspiracy theory before the election that Trump didn't really want to govern. He liked being president, and he liked the benefits of it, including putting aside all of his convictions, which it apparently has. But he didn't really want to run anything. That's too much work. So he was very glad to have people like Elon come in and do it. And that was the conspiracy theory that Peter Thiel and Elon Musk were funding Trump because they knew that he would take a back seat. He would enjoy the trappings of power without actually having to worry about it. J.D. Vance, who was a Thiel protege, would be the vice president. He'd be sitting there with Musk and Thiel and all of these people running the country. It kind of looks like maybe that wasn't a conspiracy theory, or at least that's what happened. So
I'm not
now
even sure
I'm
whether
wondering, is that a bad thing? Maybe these guys, they're all great businessmen, right? They know how to run companies. They know how to launch rockets. They know how to, so maybe they should be running the country.
I'm not even sure if it was ever a conspiracy theory. It seemed kind of manifestly obvious, from the get-go.
This was the plan.
Yeah, certainly you can make a strong case that a business background is not inherently a great background for running a government. But
I'm worried because a lot of these guys have big egos because they've stumbled into money. I don't know if they a lot of them are billionaires just because they were in the right place at the right time, but they think they're geniuses. And there's a certain arrogance that comes with that. That worries me a little bit.
These are all arrogant people.
Some have likened it, though, to JFK bringing in the Harvard elite, the best and the brightest, right? Or Abraham Lincoln's team of rivals, bringing in the best minds to help run the country. And maybe that's what's going to happen.
Yes, they are arrogant, but so is virtually everybody else at that echelon of power.
Yeah, you don't get to be president without being a little arrogant.
Trying to be optimistic, I would hope that maybe there's the potential for them, by sitting in on these meetings, to soak up some knowledge they don't already have, and that they have enough of a humble side to realize that they are not experts on foreign policy or all these other things outside of their wheelhouse.
They're in there for the interviews, maybe just to make sure that the person is competent and smart, and then somebody else is going to do the other part of the interview. We don't know.
It's also not clear how long this will last, because historically, Trump doesn't get along well forever with other people who are as needy as Elon Musk is, and that this could
who
just
get as much attention, right?
He's in love with Elon right now.
This could all
with him.
This could all be kind of brief.
He was in love with everybody.
He was in love with Kim Jong-un as well. And he seems to like Putin quite a bit.
And there are all these other constituencies like the Project 2025 people who are also jockeying for power along with the Silicon Valley.
There are a lot of, and I bet this happens in every transition. All of the different constituencies say, hey, we have a seat now. We want it. This is our agenda. And it's up to the president and his staff to kind of keep them out of the, control it, right?
Right.
And so and because we're not sitting in the room, we don't know what's going on, and we'll find out. One way we'll know is because David Sachs, who's now, whatever this means, AI and crypto czar, that is a new title, has no congressional power, has no more power than any other, I guess, executive branch czar, is not a fan of OpenAI. And if you want to recuse yourself on this one, Lou, you can.
I was going to say, I'm going to have to, unfortunately.
Actually, you work for Microsoft too, in a way, because you work for GitHub. I forgot about that. Yeah, we got two Microsofties on here. So recuse yourself if you wish. But David Sachs has said on the All In podcast that OpenAI is a piranha, a for-profit piranha. And it could be bad news if Sachs is, again, I don't know what powers he's going to have, but if he's the AI czar, we know that he likes Elon Musk and his XAI, but he doesn't like Sam Altman and his OpenAI. Well, we know that will be maybe a litmus test of what's to happen. Here. What do you think, Harry? It's just you and me on this one.
Well, and Elon Musk, despite being a co-founder of OpenAI, is also not a fan of what's become of it. So, I mean, there's the cynical expectation is that they will knowingly use the power they have to make life tough for Sam Altman.
Right.
There's also the possibility they won't do it on purpose, but it will color what they do. Really cynical prospect is that they go out of their way not to let their own personal interests affect things, which, I'll allow that there's a possibility that will happen. I'm not entirely sure what they would do right now to make life tough for OpenAI through the power they have, but it's certainly possible. And I can certainly see that the fact they have Trump's ear leading to Trump not being a fan of OpenAI and that having implications.
All right. I feel bad. I don't want to talk too much about this since both Christina and Lou have.
Well, I do want to add one perspective, though, Leo. And this is not necessarily anything to do with this story, but I think the case of him suing OpenAI, I think I kind of go back to the stories that come out around Elon kind of handing over all of his patents to BMW and saying, okay, I'd rather another company build a better electric car than me, then the world kind of benefits from it. And I think he kind of goes back to that theme anytime he talks about any type of technology. And he's really pissed off that OpenAI is doing this closed door for-profit model. And I think he'll continue to do that. If he can afford to go and fight the fight, he's going to fight the fight. And I think that's the interesting part about this is to see where they go. Because again, OpenAI is on top. These are companies that are people like Anthropic and other companies are striving for what they're achieving. And I think it's a hard thing to follow. And even X, X is using existing models that are out there. I hope the open source community really succeeds here. I'm really
like Meta. You mean, or
any of them? There's if you go to deepseek.com, there's lots of open source models that are there that are in some cases actually doing better than some of the OpenAI models. So
well, certainly competition and many flowers bloom is obviously best for everybody, including Copilot and GitHub Copilot, because I could see that. One thing that may be very good is his pick for NASA. But again, this is going to be interesting. He picked Jared Isaacman, whose name you may remember. Now, he made his money as the CEO of a payment processing company, Shift4 Payments, but he has sponsored a couple of SpaceX missions. You remember the Dragon mission where he rode with three others into space, and then he did the first ever privately funded spacewalk last September. So this guy is a man who loves space. He has close ties with SpaceX, admittedly, but he is the president-elect's pick for running NASA. I presume he has to be confirmed, but I would imagine of all of the nominees so far, he would be the quickest to confirmation. He says he envisions a thriving space economy and vows to usher in an era where humanity becomes a true spacefaring civilization. And I believe it. Because of his background. Garrett Reisman is a retired NASA astronaut advisor to SpaceX, says that Isaacman is definitely going to push NASA, but he'll do it in a positive way. Elon Musk said he's a man of high ability and integrity. This might be a great choice. NASA has been hamstrung by the fact that Congress gives it money but uses it really for pork barrels. So the Space Launch System rocket, the SLS, which has been a massive failure, and $24 billion, but it's massively over budget. Part of the problem is that it's made in every different state in the union practically. It's piecemealed so that every member of Congress could get their little pork barrel in, and that is not the way to run a space agency. So maybe this will be good for NASA.
Maybe they'll fix the Hubble.
There's the SLS is a real problem. Now, remember, though, this guy has close ties to SpaceX.
Right.
And this is, the norm in government is you kind of recuse yourself. You step back from your investments. You step back from your ties, and you act on behalf of the people, not any individual company or person. I don't know if Isaacman would do that. I don't know. We'll have to watch again.
And there's this overarching question of the fact that Elon Musk controls SpaceX and is now involved in all these other aspects of the government and American life in general and global politics. And, ultimately, whose interests is he going to serve? Once he knows all this stuff, he is likely to know as a Trump confidant. Is he going to leverage that for his own private interests?
Yeah.
Right.
NASA's current administrator, Bill Nelson, this is quoted by Reuters, said he thinks the relationship between Elon Musk and the president-elect is going to be a benefit to making sure the funding for NASA is there. So I see that as a positive.
Seems like it could.
I guess if really your chief and only interest is we got to get into space, this is the right way to do it, right? Get it, what we've shown is that commercial space is more effective. We'll have to get
your SpaceX stock now, right?
Yeah, well, to the moon, literally.
To the moon, literally.
So I guess really we're just going to have to wait and see. Yeah. My temptation is to say, oh, this is a disaster, but maybe it's not a disaster. Maybe these guys are smart. Maybe we're going to get better people in there. Maybe government will be more efficient. Maybe they won't cut my Social Security.
All these guys have a big interest. I'm sorry for calling them guys. I guess the ones we've been talking about are guys, but they all have a huge interest in business deregulation, which in some cases could be great. There are also lots of instances where it could be a major problem, but I would expect that's what motivates a lot of people in the private sector to get involved here, and they will push Trump to make it happen.
And that's his natural inclination anyway, is deregulation. Yeah. This is what America voted for, frankly. It's what the Supreme Court's been pushing. I mean, this is where we're going.
I think ultimately the real thing to see, because what we saw 8 years ago obviously was different in terms of the types of people who were brought in. Although you did have some private sector folks who he put in his cabinet too, and some of those actually did better than some of the Washington types. But I think even if we take the most positive view about this, it is just kind of the uncertainty is kind of what Harry mentioned before, which is kind of the capriciousness of the, president-elect, right? And how well everyone's going to continue to get along. And I think that's really the thing that is the big, waiting game. It's like, okay, these are the people who are in place now. Is this going to be a repeat of what we saw 8 years ago, where you have administration rollover after administration rollover, or is this going to be consistent? Because, you're
asking how many Scaramucci's.
Right, exactly.
Is this going to take?
Kind of, right? I mean, and because in some cases you're like, okay, some of these appointments make sense and they could be good things. And, maybe these are smart people who could potentially, enact, some positive changes, who knows? But it could also be all for nothing if, people last a few months. And that's to me is the big unknown. We just don't know how long any of this is going to last before we can even assess whether this is going to be good or bad.
All right. I'm going to take a break because I promised to get you out of here fast. And I know you're are you in one ear? Are you listening to Taylor Swift music as
I'm not. I'm so plugged in right now just on this.
I love you, Christina. This is such a sacrifice. She flies in from South Korea, is going to a concert tonight, but makes time for us. And I'm so grateful. Thank you.
I love you guys.
And of course, Lou has 23 children. So he is also.
Look, Lou's sacrificing way more than me.
Right? 5 boys.
I have 5 boys. That's right.
5 boys. Yeah. 5 boys is like 23 children.
It sometimes is, yeah.
Lou, we love having you here. Former host of This Week in Enterprise Tech, and a very smart guy. Great to have you on. And of course, the technologizer himself, Harry McCracken from Fast Company. Our show today brought to you by a tool everyone should have in their business, a Thinkst Canary. What's a canary? It's a honeypot. It's a good name, right? The canary in the coal mine. The Thinkst Canary is a honeypot that you configure to look like anything you want. It can be a Windows server. It can be a Linux server. You can have all the services turned on like a Christmas tree, like those guys behind me. You could have it just be some specific little ports open that you know will attract the wily hacker. It can be a SCADA device. Mine is a Synology NAS, and it looks just like a Synology NAS. The MAC address is correct. The login screen looks just like DSM-7. I mean, it is down every detail. These things don't look vulnerable to a bad guy. They look valuable, and that's the key to the Thinkst Canary, a honeypot that's easy to configure, can be deployed in minutes, and will let you know if there's somebody inside your network, whether it's a hacker or a malicious insider. If they're snooping around your network, you will get the alert that matters. No false alerts, just the alert that matters. You can also make lure files with your Thinkst Canary, little PDFs or docx or Excel, whatever you want. Text files if you want. Give them provocative names, and if somebody tries to open them, they're not real files. They'll alert the Thinkst Canary, which will alert you. I have a few Excel spreadsheets spread around that say things like employee information. I mean, I'm not blatant. I don't say social security numbers here. Look here. You could if you want to. Some big operations might have hundreds of Thinkst Canaries scattered all around. A little business like ours might have a handful. These Thinkst Canaries are so awesome because if somebody accesses your Thinkst Canary, brute forces your fake internal SSH server, let's say, or opens one of the lure files, the Thinkst Canary will tell you immediately you have a problem. And they'll tell you in the way you want. SMS, text messages, email. They support syslog. Of course, they support, you have your own console. You could look there. You can get, there's an API. You could have alerts any way you want. They support webhooks. I mean, you could get a Facebook notification if you wanted, whatever works for you. The point is, if you get an alert, there's somebody inside the network. Choose a profile for your Thinkst Canary device, register it with a hosted console for monitoring and notifications, then you wait. Attackers who have breached your network, malicious insiders, adversaries of any kind will make themselves known by accessing the Thinkst Canary. They can't help it. They have to try to get in. Get yourself a Thinkst Canary. Now, the price will vary depending on how many you get. I'll give you an example. Go to canary.tools/twit. 5 Thinkst Canaries will be $7,500 a year. You get your own hosted console, you get upgrades, you get support, you get maintenance for the whole year. And by the way, if you use the offer code TWIT in the How Did You Hear About Us box, you're going to get 10% off the price for as long as you use Thinkst Canaries for life. 10% off for life. Now, here's another thing that maybe will reassure you. If you're at all skeptical, you can always return your Thinkst Canaries. They have a very generous 60-day, 2 months money-back guarantee for a full refund. 60 days. Plenty of time to see if you like it. But I have to tell you, in all the years we've done these ads, it's almost a decade now. No one has ever asked for a refund. Because once you get your Thinkst Canaries, you're going to go, oh, yeah, of course. How did I live without them? Visit canary.tools/twit. Don't forget twit in the How Did You Hear About Us box. And if you want to see other people who love their Thinkst Canaries, go to canary.tools/love. And there's some great posts there. Canary.tools/twit. The Thinkst Canary is an awesome product. Everybody should have one. If you got perimeter defenses, that's fine. But what happens when somebody gets through those? That's what really matters. All right. Back to the show we go. Let's talk about TikTok. The clock is ticking, I guess, right? A court has ruled that law that says divest or shut down in the United States is legal, is valid, and now it's coming down to January 19th, the day before Inauguration Day. It's for real this time. New York Times says TikTok creators flooding the social network with videos on Friday after judges upheld that law. You must have a TikTok. You even said that you knew that if you didn't go to the Taylor Swift concert, Christina, that you'd see it on TikTok.
Yes. I don't post on TikTok much, but yes, I have a TikTok and I consume a lot of TikTok. I've also been on record as being very uncomfortable with this legislation, this new law. whatever privacy concerns people have about TikTok. And I'm not saying they're invalid. I think those same privacy concerns, frankly, exist for all of our social networks. And if we really want to address those things, then we should address them in terms of data protection, sharing, and whatnot. I don't like the way this was carved out. I don't like the specificity in which this law targeted one specific company for what I think are pretty gross reasons. I felt that way in 2019 under the Trump administration. I felt that way under the Biden administration, and this is going to be interesting. I mean, TikTok has already said they're going to appeal this to the Supreme Court. And we'll see if they can make any sort of decision before January 19th, or if there will be any stay in lieu of hearing that, assuming the Supreme Court wants to hear this case.
Yeah, they may not get there. I mean, this is the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia denying its petition to overturn the law. So all they can do now is say, yeah, we're taking it to the highest court in the land, and then it's up to the Supreme Court to give them cert. And this all has to happen before January 19th.
Right.
Yeah, I wonder. Look, I've mentioned this before. I have a little bit of a dog in this hunt. My son became a TikTok star a year ago. TikTok gave him his business. If it weren't for TikTok, nobody would have ever heard of Salt Hank, but he had 2.5 million followers on TikTok, has done the same on Instagram, has a best-selling cookbooks in stores right now, all because of TikTok. In fact, he's opening his first restaurant in New York City in the spring or in the early summer. Again, all because of TikTok. And the key with TikTok, Benito once said this, our producer, who's on vacation, by the way. I hope he's having a good time in the Philippines. Anthony Nielsen filling in for him today. Benito said, if you're going to start something these days, you better start it somewhere where you can go viral. Whether it's a podcast, videos, book author, newsletter. Because there's so much content, unless you're on a platform that can promote you virally, you don't have a chance, right? Is that true?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, TikTok has an amazing generational reach. It's forcing cultural trends. It's forcing creativity, innovation. So I think it's got a lot of positives. I think it's it's interesting that they're focusing on the negatives here.
People would say, oh, well, your son could just have done the same thing on Insta with Reels, which is, I guess, true. But then that raises the issue, is that the real reason that we're shutting down TikTok? Because we want Mark Zuckerberg's, it's a U.S. company after all.
Right. Which is my issue with it, frankly, right? Is that what is the real reason? We're told, very nebulous, without any specificity, national security concerns. We're given no proof. We're not, told anything beyond just, we think this is bad. Meanwhile, technologists who actually look at this, and let's also be honest, there are many, many, many thousands, tens of thousands of Americans who work at TikTok, who work at ByteDance, who are saying this is not how this works. This is not, exfiltrating your data. We're not, selling things to China. I'll also point out your data is already being sold to China and other countries, and your internet service provider is doing it, and that's fully legal.
And data brokers,
correct. This is already happening. So if this is what we're against, I'm in full agreement. Let's pass that legislation. Yeah. I don't like how this is being targeted against one company in what, does look like it was very clear in 2019, which, granted, I know is a different situation than this current law. But in 2019, when the first movement of they have to divest or be sold to a U.S. company thing, that was a very clear, we don't like that another company is making money in these platforms and is building momentum, and we don't like that we don't have a piece of the pie. That was what the situation was. And then.
Even worse, if it had been maybe a Scandinavian company like Spotify, maybe we wouldn't worry about it so much.
Maybe we wouldn't worry about it at all. Right.
People.
Well,
precisely.
I mean, the thing that does concern me, and I think there is some evidence for this, is that stuff that the Chinese government would prefer you not think about does appear to be harder to find on TikTok. That is concerning to me. It's not the only thing that concerns me. I'm also concerned about the fact that on Twitter, stuff that Elon Musk would prefer you to not think about is increasingly hard to find.
And on MSNBC and on Fox and every other media outlet these days.
I was going to say, can we make Can we make, I mean, you're not wrong about that, Harry, but can we be upset and be waving our hands about how awful it is that certain content is being, suppressed on one platform when we mention that about other platforms? And the response is, well, it's the platform's choice about what to do. Now, again, if we want to have, laws out there about how those decisions are shown to people so that they are aware that things are being suppressed or that they are aware that there's a point of view, then I'm fine with that.
What if?
But I just don't see the difference between what, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, anything else that is not just purely, determined by a chronological feed. Anybody that does an algorithmic determination, I don't understand like what the real difference is other than this is the Chinese government ostensibly versus this is, Mark
What if
Zuckerberg.
you could wave a wand and say, you should only be able to access a social network that is created in your country by people in your country, whatever your country is, China, Venezuela, the United States, Mexico, Canada. If you're Canadian, you have to use a Canadian social network. What if we did that? Then you wouldn't have to worry about influence campaigns. You wouldn't have to worry, right? Or maybe not, actually. Because Twitter is the United States, and there's plenty of influence campaigns going on from Russia and China. But let's say you did that. Is that a good thing? No, because a social network is about a global community. That's the good thing about it.
I have to say, I feel a little bit less blithe than maybe you folks do about a social network under the influence of the Chinese government not being something to have concerns about. That said, as far as I know, there's not a lot of evidence that they are mining people's data or doing stuff that's harmful to individual users. But I don't think the concern about it is unreasonable. And I don't think Sweden and China should be considered in exactly the same way.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
I don't want to diminish your concerns because that's true. In fact, this is what the court said.
That said, I feel like I don't know enough about this to say yes. I think this is a great idea to pull it away from the current owners. I acknowledge the fact that I don't understand everything about it.
The U.S. District Court, which presumably may have seen more than we see as private citizens, TikTok argued the law unfair. This is from the New York Times. Unfairly singled out the company. A ban would infringe on the free speech rights of American users. The judges said the law was, quote, carefully crafted to deal with only control by a foreign adversary, end quote. It did not run afoul of the First Amendment. The ruling acknowledged Americans would, quote, lose access to an outlet for expression, a source of community, and even a means of income, end quote, but that Congress had weighed those risks against national security concerns. And I guess that's really what you're saying, Harry, is if given all the evidence, the national security concern is genuine, that outweighs all the other things, especially since they're all alternatives to TikTok, like YouTube Shorts and Facebook Reels.
I'm not going that far because I'm not sure whether it's really been proved that the national security concern. We
don't know because they won't tell us. They will only tell Congress.
Exactly. I mean, I think being concerned about it is legitimate. This action, I'm not saying I support because it is pretty fuzzy, and I think it would be a shame if TikTok goes away versus it continuing on or somebody else taking it over in a way that's not too big a blip for all the people who love it.
The thing that bothers me about this, and I said this months ago, so I'm repeating myself. If people have heard me say this before, I apologize. Is that I agree that we shouldn't just dismiss the security concerns, and if there is real evidence there that we haven't seen, and that for whatever reason they haven't shown us, mea culpa, I will take that on. However, there has been a process historically. There is a process in the United States government known as CFIUS, and it's CFIUS is I believe the acronym.
Yeah, the Committee for Investment in the United States.
Right.
For foreign investment in the United States.
For foreign investment in the United States. Yeah. And that has before forced companies to either decouple from foreign ownership.
Yeah.
There is a process. That TikTok has been basically in that process for years under 2 administrations. It has not moved forward, presumably because the evidence, shown hasn't gone anywhere. This isn't, to me, this isn't a situation like ZTE or Huawei, where I think there are very real concerns and very real evidence, especially with ZTE, which is why that equipment is not allowed in the United States or many other countries. Same with some of Huawei's equipment. where you should say, yes, a ban is absolutely, correct here. And there are real national security concerns, and the companies have done things that are hiding, what they're doing. But again, the CFIUS process, which has forced, foreign divestment before, this is a known process, has been going on, I think at this point, I think it's 5 years. And I'm bothered by the fact that we are now potentially losing access to something for reasons that even if we're talking about the best case scenario, I don't have any confidence that that's the case. Like basically the government, has said, like the Congress said, trust me. And I'm just going to be honest, me, Christina Warren, individual citizen, I don't trust you. And that's
a big problem, by the way, in our polity in general, is that we have now decided we no longer trust politicians of any stripe.
Well, Donald Trump has managed to take both sides of this issue. So who knows what lies ahead.
Right.
He was the one who precipitated all of this in his last administration. And now he likes TikTok. And then he said, "Oh, I won't ban it." But then he's been kind of demure. But then, of course, the deadline is the day before Inauguration Day. So who knows? He may not have the opportunity. Yeah,
we almost had TikTok, a wholly owned subsidiary of Oracle.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, Oracle did Project Texas, which was TikTok's kind of attempt to appease Congress, was in fact to store all the data in Texas in Oracle's servers. And but it was pretty clear that the Chinese government could access that. And that's really the problem, is that any company run out of mainland China is partially owned by the Chinese government. They mandate that, and there's nothing for them to defend themselves against in Chinese government intrusion. So, I mean, not that that's so different in the U.S. China could say the same thing about all of our U.S. social media. Probably does. In fact, does. They block Facebook, don't they? They block X. They block all of those. I used to edit PC World magazine. We had a Chinese edition, which was literally a joint venture with the government, and which literally had an on-site censor.
Right.
Yeah, there you go. Right?
One of the biggest differences about especially social networks like TikTok, though, is the interesting thing is that's different than some of these other like Huawei and so on, is obviously you give them your data. Data's stored somewhere probably in the region that you're in, but then you don't know what happens behind the scenes. They can go and take that data and exfiltrate it and send it over to mainland, right? I mean, with these hardware vendors, they're tracked and by compliance officers, and there's no kind of like service that their data is going to. And so
but presumably a Huawei switch could be modified. The firmware could be modified by the Chinese government.
Right.
To suddenly exfiltrate everything that happens on that switch. Right. That would be a problem.
That's easier to detect, right? I mean, these are networks that can detect it, right? But with social network, you know how your data is going to, right? I mean, it could be going everywhere. That's
why we have no evidence, right? Because we don't know. That's really the truth. And I bet you Congress doesn't know. We don't know.
No.
And nor do we know if there have been influence campaigns. It's interesting. On Friday, the European Union sent TikTok a request for more information because Romanian intelligence files suggested that Moscow had coordinated influencers on TikTok to promote an election candidate who suddenly became the front runner. The far-right populist Kalin Georgescu came out of nowhere in the election. The top court, Supreme Court of Romania, overturned, annulled results from the first round of voting because of that. And now Romanian authorities think that Russia used Telegram to recruit thousands of TikTok users to promote Georgescu. Now, whether that happened or not, they're investigating it. But that just shows, that's not China.
No,
that's Russia doing that.
Well,
this could happen on X.
Right. I was going to say, I mean, and I think that, and I understand that the district court rejected the First Amendment appeal, and maybe it was because of the narrowness of how the argument was presented. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how that works, but I do feel like there is something to be said, which is people are voluntarily giving their information, to these services, whether it's Facebook
and you're
or Instagram
involuntary giving your information to data brokers who are gladly selling it on to China, and there's no law against it.
Correct.
In fact,
and so
stunningly, the FTC is considering, it's not even illegal, they're considering limiting the ability of data brokers to sell your social security number. Currently, they're allowed to do that. It's not illegal. So we found this out in the National Public Data Breach, where my social security number was in it. A million, what was it? 300 million people's social security number was in that breach. We don't know the actual number because there was duplication, but there was a lot. And those guys were selling that, in fact, to not only China, but to the United States' own intelligence agencies and law enforcement. And that's the real reason there's no law against it, because law enforcement will never let that happen. They need it. They use it. They don't have to spy on us illegally. They just let our ISPs do it legally, and then they buy it.
If you could go back in time, I mean, social security numbers should never have been used. Anything but a number that is known by you and the government. It's so many problems.
To rent an apartment, you have to give them your social security number. Who knows what that apartment rental agency's doing with it?
Right.
You know, forget it. And it says on the card, not to be used for identification. It doesn't matter. All right. But now we're beating a dead horse. All right. I don't know what will happen to TikTok. There is a guy named Frank McCourt, not the author of the fabulous books Angela's Ashes and Tis. That's a different Frank McCourt. Frank McCourt is a billionaire who has something called Project Liberty, and he's trying to put together a consortium of investors to make what he calls a people's bid for TikTok.
Okay.
This might be I don't know. Project Liberty includes a for-profit company and a nonprofit institute. Sounds like OpenAI. It was founded to help build and advocate for a safer and more equitable internet. He says we've got informal commitments of more than $20 billion, and that they're going to do an investor roadshow early next week in New York City and San Francisco in case you want to put some of your money in. Tim Berners-Lee supports it. David Clark, MIT Computer Science and AI Lab Senior Research Scientist, supports it. I don't know. I don't know if this is I don't know who Project Liberty is or Frank McCourt, frankly, but
I mean, he has given a lot of thought to this. One of the big unanswered questions is what happens if you have a TikTok in the U.S. that's not based on the original algorithm. It might be way less.
China has said we will not. That is not for sale. You cannot get our algorithm.
It might be way less compelling. You can argue that would be either a good thing or a bad thing, or maybe somewhere in the middle. But
you can also argue that there's nothing magic in the algorithm.
Right. I mean, McCourt does say that he's thought about this and has some sort of strategy where you can have TikTok in the U.S., which I mean, he's very big on the notion that the social networks we have are unhealthy, and he's partially motivated by wanting to have control over a large social network that is healthier, and says he has a strategy for making TikTok compelling and interesting and fun, but also not addictive and not dependent on the algorithm it already has.
According to Axios, McCourt says the technology we're building respects individuals by returning to them ownership and control of their identity and their data. That's important. I don't know how he's going to do that, but anyway, but not by surveilling them. This is possible because we're not influenced by foreign actors. We're not beholden to big tech, and we've built the necessary technology that can support this powerful platform loved by more than 170 million Americans. Maybe he's the white knight that's going to save this whole thing.
Well, I mean, I think the big question, though, would be, would ByteDance want to sell, right? Because it's one thing to have a consortium, assuming you can get the money together, assuming you can have everyone, ready to go.
20 billion seems low, to be honest.
It does. It seems extremely low. And so, but let's assume that that's not an issue and that the money can come together. Does China want to sell? Because, if let's just flip perspectives. If the Chinese government said to us that, basically Facebook Meta had to be sold in order to operate in China and to be able to continue to work there. Let's assume they had a relationship, or Google, or Microsoft, companies that do have, granted they're joint ventures, but had things that they had to be sold and couldn't have any of their current investment from the United States. I think that both the U.S. government and those companies would individually say, screw you, we don't need to be in your country, right? So that's always an option. They can just pick up their ball and go home. And I actually think that is a potential negative thing for the supposed national security concerns, which is, okay, let's assume that there's no stay of execution, that TikTok is not allowed to continue to operate after January 19th, at least in the United States. And let's assume that they move their infrastructure to other countries and they still are running in other countries and you can still log in. So what, short of really forcing, ISPs and VPNs and things like that to do things that those tools can't do, are you going to talk to all the cellular networks and say, nobody can access any of these tools or whatnot? People are going to use VPNs. They're going to access the service anyway, as long as it's still running, pretending to be in other countries, even creating accounts that make it appear as if they're in other countries, but are still located in the United States. The data is still going to be sold to foreign adversaries, potentially even more so. And now you don't even have, the people working in the United States as engineers on anything. So it's even more of a black box. So if this does happen the way that it's, like the worst case scenario, I don't see a positive outcome, assuming, TikTok still stays operating, because people are still going to find ways to use it. And now their information is going to be even less protected.
Yeah. By the way, McCourt is the former owner of the LA Dodgers. It's the same Frank McCourt, who is, according to Surge Strip in our Discord, one of the most hated men in Los Angeles. But he did develop, or this Liberty consortium has developed apparently a protocol designed to do exactly what he's talking about, which I think is kind of interesting. It's called the Decentralized Social Networking Protocol. I think, Harry McCracken, you need to do a profile on this guy. I think this is something right up your alley.
I have talked to him, and something like that could happen, because he is an interesting guy, and and I think it's fair to say he's not in it purely because it's potentially a big business opportunity. And he does have a pretty long history of thinking through some of these issues over the last few years.
I'd like to know more. He also owns the Marseille soccer club. Football club. I'd like to know more. I would.
He's like a long time, big time Boston businessman and well known there.
Okay. Well, that's right up your alley. Harry McCracken is here. He does cover this kind of thing. He does really great writing at fastcompany.com. I also, and I've told you this before, I love your nostalgia pieces about old school tech and so forth. Really great stuff. It's great to have you on, as always, Harry McCracken. Give my love to Marie, by the way.
I will.
When we had a studio, Harry and Marie used to come up and visit the studio, as did many of you. And I'm sorry that we don't have a studio anymore. But
she's in the other room right now.
Sending my love. We are working hard to get Christina Warren out of here before the Eras tour begins. Christina Warren's here. She is a senior developer advocate at the GitHub, which we all love, and a really good example of how AI can be used for coding. It's really, GitHub Copilot is remarkable. Great to have you, and also from a Microsoft joint Principal Engineering Manager of Excel Copilot, former host of This Week in Enterprise Tech, the great Lou Maresca.
Thank you, Lou.
Great to have all three of you. Our show today brought to you by ExpressVPN. If you're going to China, bring ExpressVPN along with you. Everybody who listens to this show probably knows about VPNs and what VPNs, virtual private networks, do. They encrypt your traffic from your computer to their server and then out into the public internet, thereby giving you some anonymity, some security. But there's one more thing that a VPN can do that's pretty awesome. Because ExpressVPN servers are in over 100 countries around the world, you can emerge onto the public internet from any one of those countries, which has an interesting, wonderful side effect. Let's say you have a Netflix account. Who doesn't these days, right? And you've watched all 6,000 of the Netflix shows available in the US, or at least you've watched most of them and the rest of them you don't want to see. Netflix has 3 times that number of titles available globally. You're missing out literally on thousands of great shows. But if you use ExpressVPN, by the way, the only VPN I use and trust, how does ExpressVPN work to unblock content? Well, they hide content based on your location. You can then emerge into your country of choice. Let's say it's the UK, and watch the shows on Netflix UK. Now, I asked Netflix, is that okay? And they said, hey, you got a Netflix account. It's okay with us. They say, we don't recommend it because a VPN isn't fast enough to watch high def content, right? Wrong. You can watch HD video anywhere in the world from any of their servers. That's amazing. It means you can access worldwide ESPN Plus or Fubo or Disney Plus or HBO Max in other countries, YouTube, Hulu, Showtime, DirecTV, and of course Netflix in any country of your choice. Let's say you want to watch, I don't know, Yellowstone. You can't see Yellowstone on Netflix in the US, but you open ExpressVPN, select a country where you can see it. I don't know, Germany, Greece. Tap one button to connect, refresh Netflix, and all of a sudden you're seeing Yellowstone. This is a really cool side effect of having a great VPN like ExpressVPN. They invest that money also to make sure that you're secure. They rotate their IP addresses regularly. That's one of the reasons this works, because those companies can't see that you're coming in on a VPN. They also make sure that their servers do not record your visit. They developed something called Trusted Server, which has been audited by third parties. It spins up in RAM when you press that big button on your ExpressVPN app on iOS or Android, Mac, Windows, Linux, even on a server, even on a router. When you press that big button and you spin up a server, it runs in RAM. It's sandboxed. It can't write to the hard drive. And as if that weren't enough, which it is, third-party audits have proven. But even then, they run a custom Debian distribution, which erases the entire hard drive every morning, reboots, starts fresh. So there is no trace of your visit. I like it because ExpressVPN is absolutely committed to your privacy. And believe me, I wouldn't travel anywhere without ExpressVPN. Why is ExpressVPN the best of the VPNs? Because it works on all your devices, your phone, your laptop, your tablet, blazing fast speeds, rated number 1 by CNET and The Verge. It keeps you secure. It keeps you private. It does the job, right? And you can watch Yellowstone. Right now, you can take advantage of ExpressVPN's Black Friday Cyber Monday offer. To get the absolute best VPN deal you'll find all year, just go to expressvpn.com/twit. expressvpn.com/twit. You'll get 4 extra months with a 12-month plan or 6 extra months with a 24-month plan. Absolutely free. expressvpn.com/twit. An extra 4 or even 6 months of ExpressVPN. No cost, no additional cost to you when you subscribe for 1 or 2 years. And that's the way to do it. Keeps the price down and you get the benefit all year long. expressvpn.com/twit. We thank them for their support. I'm really tempted to go off script and ask Christina if she's excited about Severance coming back, but I'm not going to.
Okay. I am. I am, though. I am.
Lisa, yesterday, she says, it's coming back. I said,
Yes.
I know, in January.
January, so good. So good.
Half the time when you're on the show with Christina, I just want to talk about TVs and movies.
Yes.
Good stuff. Content, tailored, whatever, it's good stuff. But all right, let's focus on some tech news here. We were talking about rip and replace, the idea of getting those Huawei switches out of the United States infrastructure. It's expensive. It's estimated to be almost $5 billion to do that. House of Representatives will be voting next week on the annual defense bill that includes another $3 billion for U.S. telecom companies to remove equipment from Chinese telecoms like Huawei and ZTE. That's probably good news. The FCC says it's going to cost as much as $4.98 billion. Congress had only approved $1.9 billion. So we're getting close now with this additional $3 billion. In fact, I think this gives us the full amount that the FCC says we will need. It's interesting because this is not only on the agenda of the current FCC and its chair, Jessica Rosenworcel, but it is also Brendan Carr's goal, he says, to do fully fund rip and replace in the next administration. So I think that that's going to go forward. I think that's what you brought that up, Lou. I think that's one thing we can all agree should be done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of other hardware companies that can offer similar technology, if not better technology, that are in better hands. So I think this is a better opportunity for us to get there.
Well, that was the question in the beginning is there anything as good as the Huawei and ZTE? And you think there is from other countries, or is there any U.S. country
definitely by now?
switches?
I mean, there used to not be.
Cisco, anybody?
Right. Yeah, right. Cisco. I mean, there's definitely used to not be, but now there's definitely companies that have caught up.
Right. Speaking of big U.S. companies, Oh, Intel.
I know.
Intel.
So sad. Well, it's both sad and it's kind of self-inflicted, is it not?
Yeah. Well, for years, right?
For years, for decades, for decades, if we're being completely candid.
Largely self-inflicted, I would say.
Yes. Yeah.
Ben Thompson's written a lot about this in Stratechery. Intel was the original integrated chip company where they would design and build their own chips, which at the time worked really well. But then along comes companies like ARM, NVIDIA, TSMC. ARM and NVIDIA design the chips. They don't make them. TSMC makes them. And because so much money has been pumped into TSMC, mostly chiefly, I have to say, by Apple, their technology's leapfrogged Intel's technology. And so they're better at making chips than Intel. And ARM and NVIDIA are better at designing chips than Intel. It kind of leaves Intel with...
And AMD, Intel's traditional rival, years ago, stopped making its own chips and has been on a roll recently.
Right.
I'm sorry that Pat Gelsinger, the CEO, didn't get more time because he was trying to undo a huge number of mistakes made before he got there. And this is not the kind of thing you can fix in a year or two or 3 years. And I think he did have a pretty smart vision of what to do, but it was not something he could implement in the time that the board gave him.
Yeah, the board. So he says he told the board when they were looking for a new CEO, he says, I'm not going to be the guy that's going to piecemeal out, that's going to dismantle Intel. Okay. He goes back to the Andy Grove days of Intel. He was a chip designer himself. He says, I'm not going to be your guy to do that. But if you want to save Intel, I think I have a plan to split off the foundry, the fabs, and the design into two different kind of channels. We're going to maybe make chips for Apple, he said. In a very ambitious.
Yes, he said Apple would come back to him at some point, or at least that it could.
But the board only gave him 3 years. I mean, apparently that was up front. You have 3 years. The 3 years is up. A week ago, Gelsinger packed a box and left. He resigned, but the resignation was so abrupt, and there is no successor in sight. It pretty much seems like they fired him.
I mean, I think they gave him two options, either to retire or to have retirement forced upon him. I think the stuff that's happened in recent years with AI also didn't help because on top of all the stuff that Intel was dealing with, there was this new big thing that was also
NVIDIA
behind
ate their lunch. NVIDIA's worth more than Intel is now.
Yes. Well, AMD has been worth more, right? NVIDIA is worth more than both of them. But yeah, I mean, you talk about a company who they missed mobile completely. Like massively, and then were obstinate about it. I know you remember this, Harry. Like they were dismissive of the entire regime. They were dismissive of ARM chips all up. They were like, it doesn't matter that our Atom stuff is terrible and that it can't be used in phones. These things don't matter. Well, now they matter. They've also missed graphics repeatedly over and over and over again. And they've had opportunities to buy, reputable, graphics places and have their own GPUs that are not integrated stuff. AMD bought ATI and they're not NVIDIA, but they at least have, they can do something. And now they've missed AI. And so I agree with you, Harry. Like I think Pat Gelsinger had some good plans. I don't know if anybody could have done this turnaround. I do wonder though, because they've been, supposed to be working on like their 18A, process, and that's been delayed. And there was kind of a part in my mind that I wondered, was that what forced the board's hand? Like, it seems like to me that if things were going in the right direction, the board would give them more time. But if there have been more delays in that process and other things, maybe that, was part of why they basically said, you can leave on your own terms or we will ask you to. I don't know.
And also, Gelsinger's vision had a lot to do with getting other companies to let Intel make their chips, which I think has just been a slog. And if he had had more big wins, it might have turned out differently. You're so right also about graphics. And Intel, I think, strategically decided not to be all that serious about graphics a long time ago and to focus on low-end graphics it could build into processors. And if it had been serious about graphics 20 years ago, it might be NVIDIA today.
Yeah, maybe it's too little too late, but Intel graphics has actually gotten better and better. They've had new releases that are, pretty good for on-chip graphics, for integrated graphics. They are going to announce this week at the IEEE Electron Devices meeting. They're going to announce some big advances in, well, this is from Tom's Hardware. I can't pretend I actually understand what they're saying, but at breakthroughs in atomically thin 2D transistors, chip packaging, and interconnects. So, of course, they've got a R&D department, and they don't stop working even if there's trouble in the stock market. And they've got some great new advances. But no matter what Intel does today, it's probably too little, too late. They'd also had a win with the CHIPS Act, more than $8 billion flowing into Intel to build plants in the United States, foundries in the United States. But it's just, I don't know. Is it too little, too late? What's going to happen to Intel, Lou?
I don't know. I hope they stay around. I mean, it's a competition that we need to keep them. Obviously, coming from a company that's put a lot of stake in both Intel and AMD and ARM, and we hope that they stick around. And like you said, I feel like there are other countries that are also offering, potential stake in this as well. Like I think Germany's also offering a lot of money for people to bring foundries in and actually produce their chips there. So I would imagine
the entire Western world is trying to do something to get manufacture out of Taiwan and China in case, right, of a global world war.
Right. The chances are a lot higher now. It seems pretty obvious that Intel will be broken up or conceivably even sold. At one point, it was reported that Qualcomm was considering a bid. So
last week, Qualcomm said, no.
I mean, Gelsinger was trying to make an Intel that was still recognizably Intel, but more modern and successful. And I think that if the board had wanted to do that, they might have stuck with him, and they will be more open to other possibilities that would be kind of sad, even if ultimately they do make sense.
Would it be along the lines of design and fabs? I mean, like split it down the middle like that? Who would buy their fabs?
That's the problem, right? Because TSMC, they all make ARM chips, right? Other than and AMD is not going to be letting Intel, unless they offer them a much better price. I don't see AMD, letting them do that. So that's the problem. It's great to have a foundry and a fab, but what's the point when TSMC is frankly better, assuming you can get it time, putting the geopolitical stuff aside.
There were a couple of things that probably the board saw as writing on the wall when Intel was removed from the Dow in favor of NVIDIA. That's not a good thing. And then I'm watching football, and there's a big ad from Microsoft saying our fastest, smartest, bestest computers ever, and they're built on Snapdragon.
Right. I mean, this has really been an inflection point this year that there are finally compelling non-x86 Windows devices.
They're good.
Although you could still get a Copilot plus PC on Intel, right? It's not restricted.
And AMD, I think. Yeah. No, it's not.
And AMD, it's almost a tragedy, a Greek tragedy.
That's what I'm saying. It really is.
Mm-hmm. It really is.
It reminds me a little bit of Digital Equipment Corp back in the day, which at one point was regarded as the inspiring startup success in this country, and within a few years no longer existed.
Yeah, first Compaq, right, and then HP acquired Compaq. So yeah. I mean, it is sad because Silicon Valley was built on it, by Intel people, right? Genuinely, right? Going back.
The traitorous 12.
Yeah, and so it just gets sad.
Intel is unquestionably one of the 5 most important companies in the history of Silicon Valley, and you could even make a pretty compelling case it's the most important company in the history of Silicon Valley.
Wow. I can remember, though, interviewing Andy Grove way back in the day, and even when it was Wintel, right? Windows and Intel, and that looked like a kind of an inextricable partnership. Grove saying how mad he was at Microsoft that they weren't supporting the new 32-bit chips. And then Microsoft mad at Intel that they couldn't keep the hardware up with the software. And it was always a kind of a difficult relationship between the two companies. It's just, it's fascinating. I love the history of it all.
There was a great old saying, Andy giveth and Bill taketh away, meaning the hardware kept getting better and better, and it was hard for software to get better rather than to get more inefficient when it had all that power.
Yeah, it got fatter.
Leo,
fatter.
fun fact: one of my first internships was in Shrewsbury, Massachusetts, for Intel. Right after the Digital Corp came in, and it was the Itanium group, and I saw a lot of that struggle. Actually,
oh my gosh,
yeah.
Oh,
that
man.
was maybe you could say that was the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
Because Itanium was the next generation. It wasn't x86. It was some IA64, right?
Right.
And the whole idea is here's the next generation. And the damn things were practically melting because they couldn't run at the speed that they were designed for. Intel, realizing they're not going to be able to sell these chips, looked to this little skunk works they had going in Israel where they were working on the core processor.
Mm-hmm.
And they moved the core into the mainstream and said, Itanium's not going to happen.
And Itanium just disappeared.
Yeah.
And for a long time, that worked really well. I mean,
it did.
Core was amazing.
It didn't seem like x86 would go on forever, and no matter how often people predicted that it would hit a wall.
No, totally. And the thing is that x86 arguably hasn't hit the wall. It was Intel's process, right? Because AMD with, their couplet technology with Zen, they were able to, really revolutionize the way they were able to get, integrate the circuits and do all the stuff to get far more power efficiency, far more performance. And that was, Lisa Su. And like, that was, only like 8-9 years ago. But yeah, you're right. Like the core thing was great. I do wonder, kind of going back to like when we look at like the mistakes, if the success there maybe helps them have that hubris to continue to ignore
That's
mobile.
probably right. It's the innovator's dilemma, isn't it? Yeah. It's always bad to be successful. And so Retcon 5 says, I didn't realize we were going to have an open casket wake in today's show. But it does raise an interesting question because sometimes I think we're like, fish don't know they're in water. It's just what they breathe. And I feel like sometimes we're in the middle of this big tech revolution and we almost don't see that the business cycle still holds, right? That Google and Microsoft and Apple and Amazon will just go on forever. But there is a business cycle. IBM fell victim to the business cycle. It's not gone, but it's a shadow of what it was before. It looks like Intel has fallen prey. There's a business cycle, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Apple and Microsoft are rare examples of companies that were on top of the world and then faced real challenges to the things that had made them successful and figured out how to continue to be extraordinarily successful, but
they reinvented themselves
while not being exactly this thing they once were. Right. And there just aren't all that many examples other than those two companies.
They're the exceptions that prove the rule almost.
IBM at one point was too. Remember, like when Lou Gerstner came in, IBM was in real trouble, and Gerstner pushed it away from hardware and towards services, which worked quite well for quite a long time.
There's tons of examples. Like Xerox is another one. They keep trying to reinvent themselves.
Right.
Kodak, Polaroid.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Sears, General Electric. There is no General Electric Corporation anymore.
Nope.
I mean, who would have thought that, right? These were titans.
Yep.
The world marches on. And so does this show. We are half an hour to the Eras concert. So we got to keep going here. Christina Warren, great to have you. We will get you out of here. I promise.
I appreciate you guys. If you guys need to keep going.
Her feet are going.
Thank you.
I got to get going here. I got to get going. I'm excited for you. I didn't realize this is the last one. That's pretty damn exciting. Wow.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be really fun.
Christina, I live really close to Westerly where she has her house. So you never know.
She lives in Westerly, Rhode Island?
She has a house in Westerly.
Taylor Swift?
Yeah.
She has a huge house.
Yep. Huge house.
It's on the
ocean house. The ocean house is a great resort to go to.
On the ocean. It's one way or the other.
Yeah.
Wow. I grew up near Westerly. Who would have thought?
Right?
Is that her main place?
No.
It was like
one
her
of
vacation
hundreds,
house.
Probably. Yeah.
Probably.
I think like 7, but yeah.
I once had dinner with Paul Simon and his wife, Edie Brickell. It's a long story. But Lisa.
Wow.
That's
like
kind of a name drop there.
That's amazing. That's so good.
But there's a point to this. So Lisa and Edie got into it and they were having a great time. And Lisa starts selling Petaluma to Edie. And Edie says to Paul, hey, Paul, we got to get a house in Petaluma. And Paul says, we have 6 houses already. We are not buying a house in Petaluma. So there, but for the grace of God, I could be Paul Simon's next door neighbor. Let's take a break. Also with us, Harry McCracken from Fast Company, Lou Maresca of Microsoft, and the Excel Copilot Group. Our show today brought to you by Lookout. Look out! Look out! At a time when the majority of sensitive corporate data has moved to the cloud, right? Your data is almost everywhere. Traditional boundaries no longer exist, and the strategies for securing that data, well, they've changed completely. It's all different now. Today, every company's in the business of managing data. That's your business. That means every company's at increased risk of data exposure and loss. You know that. Just look at the headlines. Cyber threats, breaches, leaks. And the bad news is cyber criminals are getting more sophisticated every day. Modern breaches now happen like that, not days or months, but boom. Enter Lookout. From the first phishing text to the final data grab, Lookout stops modern breaches as swiftly as they unfold. Whether on a device in the cloud, across networks, or working remotely at the local coffee shop, Lookout gives you clear visibility into your data at rest and at motion. You'll monitor, assess, and protect without sacrificing productivity for security. And with a single unified cloud platform, your IT department will love it. Lookout simplifies and strengthens. It reimagines security for the world that will be today. It's happening right in front of our eyes. Visit lookout.com today to learn how to safeguard data, to secure hybrid work, and reduce IT complexity. That's lookout.com. We thank him so much for supporting This Week in Tech and invite you to support us by going to lookout.com. And if they ask you, make sure you say, I heard it on Twit. That's good news. Let's talk about AI, the 12 days of OpenAI. It's an advent calendar of artificial intelligence. The only story I saw was that OpenAI will now have a $200 a month plan. That seems like a lot. Is there a market for that? I mean, I understand how expensive AI is. I pay for the $20 OpenAI plan, and I use it, by the way, a lot. In fact, I use it for coding, maybe not necessarily what you would think of OpenAI as doing, although I imagine, is it what's behind GitHub Copilot, or no? Is that?
It is.
It is.
Well, actually now GitHub Copilot is multi-model. So the default model is GPT-4o, but you can choose to use the O1 mini or O1 preview.
But it's all OpenAI stuff.
Yes. But as of a couple of weeks ago, we also introduced support for Anthropic,
awesome.
and Gemini Pro. So
nice.
It's
Google's.
multi-model now. So yes, but historically, going back to like the very beginning, it was built in partnership with OpenAI. So
we're in the middle in December. You've got your 12 days of OpenAI, but we've got our 25 days of the Advent of Code, which is a yearly coding challenge that a number of people in the club do, and we've been having a lot of fun. In fact, I streamed the first 4 or 5 days, but now I'm falling hopelessly behind. But I use it on the stream.
Yeah.
My Chat GPT, I used RAG for Chat GPT, and I gave it the full bookshelf because I use a language that's so old that all of the basic texts are available as open source PDFs, as public domain PDFs. So I loaded it up with like 20 books, and I created a little Lisp tool that I use, and it's fantastic.
Yeah,
if fun. I can't, instead of going, and I don't know, you're a professional coder, so you probably don't have to do this, but if I'm coding, I have to always go back to the book and say, what's the syntax for that? Or how do I do this?
I do that all the time.
We all do.
Oh, okay. It's not just me.
And that's why
the beauty of it is because
it does it for you.
Yeah, but I put those books in the Chat GPT. Mm-hmm. And it knows them all. But then the funny thing is, then I tried it with Copilot and I tried it with Gemini, and it knew them all too. So I don't really need to do it this way anymore. The one advantage of it is I say, don't say anything that's not in the books I gave you. So it can't hallucinate, right?
I am still trying to teach ChatGPT TRS-80 level 2 basic. And
there are not enough books for you. That's the problem.
I mean, there are quite a few, and they're all in the Internet Archive. Like without being trained on it, it's terrible.
It has to be trained.
Just because it needs more material. But at some point, I'm going to upload those PDFs in and see whether it's as good at programming basic as I am.
I don't use it. And just to be clear, actually, there's a little bit of a controversy around the advent of code because, it's a timed coding challenge. I do not do it for time, but there are people who are solving these daily challenges in minutes. But all of a sudden, a few have come along. In fact, the very first one solved it in 9 seconds.
Yeah.
And it became apparent that that person had just fed
Of course.
it's a text problem, fed it into OpenAI or something, Copilot, and had it write the code, and it worked. And he got the answer in I don't even know how you cut and paste in 9 seconds, but he somehow did it. And there's still a kind of ongoing controversy because there's the leaderboard, and there are a few people on the leaderboard who are really unreasonably quick, seconds instead of minutes. So they are, but I don't cut and paste code from it. It's mostly for me a reference work.
I also do like PHP and CSS. And,
it knows PHP. I'm sure.
In that case, usually I've written code that doesn't work, and one time out of 10, it's completely confused and gives me terrible advice. But most of the time, it quickly helps me get to where I'm trying to get.
One thing I've done that is great is I've given it a block of code. So what does this do?
Yes.
It's great. And it's very good
for
at that.
Great
It's
explanation.
very good
for
at
regular expressions. You can give it the most complicated.
Regex is the best.
I think
but both to explain and to write them. Like because I'm terrible at regex, and that's one of the things I use Copilot for so much. I'm like, please write this.
It's
for me.
natural. Yeah.
I think the interesting thing about 401, which is why this has cost so much, $200 a month, is the 401 model. I've had a chance to play with this and utilize it for a while, and it's really impressive with coding. You can give it, I could say, give me a web app, give it some parameters. It'll go do some reasoning, and it'll dump out code that actually works the first time. It'll give you explanations. I'll tell it new features, like I want swipe left, swipe right to delete, that kind of thing. It'll actually go and adjust the code for you. And like if you do that in 4.0, it actually, you get weird responses, you get some strange errors in the code. So like, I would say that's the biggest thing that people are paying for, is just, the additional reasoning that's going on in the correctness of it.
Yeah.
So they've only announced, just to be clear, you said 01, there was chat 4.0, which they had that video where they were talking to it, and Scarlett Johansson got pissed off and all of that. That was 4.0, which is a more conversational one, but they've gone beyond that now. So what are the models now?
So they have 4.0, but they have like six versions of 4.0. So they come out with different versions of it. It's like there'll be a May version and August version, which actually are better. They have, more, better,
and they're good at reasoning. Isn't that what they said?
The better reasoning.
That's the new ones. That's the new model. So this is the
You have to give them more time though, right?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Right. Well, it depends. Like that's why the $200 ones exist. It's actually has
more
better
time, more
infrastructure
CPU.
backing it.
Yeah, more GPU. Yeah, TPU. Oh, that's interesting. So you're paying $200 so you can have access to more hardware resources, so it can do it faster. That makes sense. All right.
Right, because the original models, in the preview days, you used to run it. It could take 30 seconds to a minute for it to come back with you. Right.
Yeah. So it's not practicable to do it in a timely way on your own local hardware at this point?
Oh, no, not at that level.
Not at that level. Yeah. No, I mean, you can do some pretty impressive things with Llama if you have, a 4090 or even like a cluster of them, or even Mac Minis, right? Like,
who doesn't have a cluster of NVIDIA 4090s?
Well, but
even
on like local Apple Silicon machines, especially if you have like multiples, or even if you have ones that have like high RAM things, you can get pretty good results from some of the Llama and some of the tuned Llama like versions that people put on Hugging Face. Now, is it going?
And when they're tuned to specific tasks,
or for specific sizes? Yes, right.
Sizes.
So what people will do is they'll basically be like, okay, we know that this many parameters won't run on your hardware, but we can maybe remove some things that we don't think you want for a specific task, and also to fit in a specific size.
This is one of the biggest and most interesting developments to me in AI, is these different size models, so that you can run some models on a device like a smartphone, which Apple does with Apple Intelligence. And then if it's too big for that, it goes to Apple's own servers, which they're building out. And if it's too big for that, then they say, okay, we can't do it, but maybe OpenAI can do it, or Claude. Well, they don't have Gemini or Claude yet, but maybe OpenAI can do it. Beware, now we're going to be sending your data to third-party servers, and then they let them do it. I think that's fascinating. And you can now locally play with these different models by downloading them. There's a number of programs on I've used Ollama on Mac.
Ollama's awesome. Yeah.
And what's it called? Anywhere, anything, any something. There are a couple of them that let you download the models and then play with it. It's nice to have it locally, but honestly, I don't mind paying $20 too. Google for Gemini, Claude for Anthropic for Claude and Sonnet, OpenAI, and Perplexity I pay for too, and they're a multi-model. So yeah, I have 4 different. I'm wasting $80.
All of them have their advantages, you know.
Totally.
I'd like a $30 version of ChatGPT that's
just a little faster,
just a little less limited, because I do sometimes max out my access to the.
So, do you use it for writing, Harry?
Not really. Maybe occasionally, if I'm trying to think of a word, and I use it as like a super powerful thesaurus. Notebook LM though, which is this Google tool based on Gemini that lets you organize your transcripts and notes. I do use that, and it's been super helpful when I've like interviewed a dozen people, and I'm trying to remember who said something interesting.
I would think that'd be so useful.
It's great. In fact, I did a big story on Google DeepMind, which has been up on our website for a couple of weeks, and it is our new issue that's just coming out. And since that was about Google DeepMind and Gemini, I went all in on using Notebook LM to help me put it together. And it really was extremely helpful and solved some long-standing problems I've had with not remembering who said what.
So the 12, I want to we have stuff about DeepMind, and I want to talk about all that stuff in a second, but I do want to finish this 12 days of OpenAI. There's only been one so far, right? Is that right, Lou? They're taking the weekend off.
Actually, I think there's 2. There's 2 so far, but yes, but you're right. They are taking some time off, and you know, I'm wondering if they're leaving to the best to last. We'll have to see.
Yeah. So the first one was O1 and ChatGPT Pro,
right?
And there's Sam Altman on the left with his team. And what was good about the Pro? Is that the $200 one?
That's the $200 one, right?
Okay. And what is O1 good for?
No, one's the reasoning model, the chain of thought model, right? Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the one that you'll get amazing results with correctness and so on.
And it can do math, which was hard to do for a language-based LLM, because all it was doing is predicting the next word, and it turns out 1 + 1 isn't always 2.
It's multimodal too, so it supports images.
Images as well. Okay. Right. And then the next announcement, the day 2 announcement, was OpenAI's reinforcement fine-tuning research program. Anything to tell us about that? Does that?
I don't know too much about that, but I do know. I think there was also another thing
that's
about
kind of a minor,
about Sora as well.
And I guess if you're going to do 12, you're going to throw in some.
There's going to be some
clunkers.
Look, not everything's going to be a hit, right? It is an advent calendar. About it's the same thing. It's like
sometimes you get a chocolate. Sometimes you get a plastic toy. You don't know.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just like a little card. We love you.
We love you. It's like Cracker Jack. When I was a kid, you'd get actual toys you could choke to death on. Now it's little pieces of paper. It's nothing. All right. So we'll watch. Do you anticipate any big announcements? I know both of you probably already know a lot, so don't say anything.
I don't, actually. I know nothing. So I don't know. I mean, I think this is a great marketing. I think this is a great marketing opportunity, honestly. I think it's a fun way to do things.
Show off.
Yes. And because I think it's 2 things. Like, 1, I think it's a fun marketing thing. And 2, I think that this is, especially given all the very good competition that's out there from, companies like Anthropic and, Google, and of course, Meta, showing like how much they're able to innovate and how much they're able to ship. Like, I think that's so it's kind of 2 things, right? Like, I think it's good for the consumer to maybe put out new things and get awareness, but I also think that it's almost maybe a secondary thing is almost probably for the investors, where it's like, look at all the stuff we're doing.
Well, especially now, because it looks like there may be some headwinds with the next administration. Now might be a good time to kind of say, hey, remember, we're still number 1. We're still the best. We're still out there. We still have the Microsoft deal.
Sam said not to expect GPT-5.
Okay. He also, though, I saw did he not say that they already have AGI in the lab?
I think he's adjusted the definition of what AGI is. I think, but
and then I saw a story that said they were trying to kill one of the models, and it didn't want to be killed. This sounds like
this is 2001.
This sounds like BS to me, but all right. I come and go with AI. Like, obviously there's uses. We just showed many valuable uses. At the same time, I don't know if we'll ever get HAL 9000, and maybe we should hope we don't. Actually, come to think of it.
Exactly. Do we need it? Like that's maybe the question. Maybe the question isn't will we, but like should we?
Should we? All right, let me take another break. I'm trying to get out of here. I have a lot more AI stories, though. I want to do some more AI stuff in just a second. But first, a word from Veeam. This is a sponsor you want to know about because Veeam, get this, Veeam is used by 77% of the Fortune 500. What is Veeam? You ought to know. They just raised a whole bunch more because what they do is so important. They are the experts in data resilience. I've always wondered when you hear, oh, this company just paid a $5 million ransomware fee to get their data back, or this company has been down for 3 weeks because they got hit by ransomware. I would say, well, don't you have backups? Don't you? What is going on? Well, it turns out it's a hard thing to do, but that's exactly what Veeam does. See, without your data, look at that, $15 billion valuation. They do something really important. Without your data, your customers' trust turns to digital dust. Veeam's data protection and ransomware recovery ensures you can secure and restore your enterprise data wherever and whenever you need it, and no matter what happens. They are the number one leader globally in data resilience. As I said, 77% of the Fortune 500 uses Veeam to keep their businesses running when digital disruptions like ransomware strike. Veeam does three important things. Of course, it lets you back up and recover your data and do so instantly across your entire cloud ecosystem, wherever that data lives. That's important. Veeam actually can stop ransomware in its tracks. It will proactively detect malicious activity and stop it before it happens. The other thing Veeam does that's so important, and I know you want to do this, Veeam helps you remove the guesswork by automating your recovery plans and policies. You have a recovery plan and policy, right? Yeah, well, maybe it's time to get Veeam. Get real-time support from ransomware recovery experts, too. Veeam has the best support, the best product. Data is the lifeblood of your business. You need to get data resilient. You know you need to do it. Go to veeam.com to learn more. Look at all the partners. Look at all the places that they can back up. VEEAM. Spell it right. 2 E's. VEEAM.com. You've probably heard a lot of buzz about Veeam this week. Good reason. It's something we all need. VEEAM.com. And if they ask, tell them you heard it here. Okay. You were talking about DeepMind. I don't know if they had this out when you interviewed them, Harry, but Google has a new DeepMind weather forecast system. They published a paper in Nature that said they are better than the best European Center for Medium Range Weather Forecasts, ENS.
Yeah, they had an earlier one, which I did mention, which itself was impressive, but this one is like on a whole another level.
This is a really good use for AI, right? Because you have weather is a chaotic system. I mean, probably at the base, at the root of it, it's deterministic, I guess, if you could get all the millions of data points in there. Very hard to predict weather, obviously. This is something an AI might be really good at.
And I think it's also in Google DeepMind's wheelhouse. AlphaFold is like probably their signature accomplishment.
Well, DeepMind
so far,
is the best chess player in the world, right? And they beat Go, and so yeah, they're good at this stuff.
This is the sort of thing that that they are really, really great at. Sometimes they have more challenges, kind of productizing and commercializing AI, although they have made inroads there. But in terms of the raw research that can do useful things for humanity, they have a great record, and it'll be fun to see where it goes.
And you can see how important this is, not just because of these big hurricanes we're getting, but if you're a farmer, knowing you're going to have dry weather or wet weather is so important. They say faster, more accurate forecasts up to 15 days ahead of time. Wow. And they are better at predicting extreme events than the ENS or the ECMWF ENS. My story
touches on there's a little bit of tension now because Google used to have Google Brain and DeepMind, these two large AI research arms, and Google Brain was kind of focused on making Gmail and Google Search and Google Maps better, and DeepMind was doing stuff like proteins and weather. And last year they merged them and put Demis Hassabis, the CEO of DeepMind, in charge of both of them. And he's trying to continue to pursue this stuff like weather that's really important, but not necessarily like an immediate cash cow for Google. while simultaneously keeping up with Apple and Microsoft and Meta and all these other companies who are much more focused on the productization side, which Google had been struggling with a little bit.
Very interesting.
And I think at the moment they've made progress on the product side, and they are continuing to do the deep research. So it's possible they'll be able to do both, but it's kind of a new twist and a new challenge for Demis Hassabis,
super cool.
For Sir Demis Hassabis, who's also became a Nobel laureate recently.
And Nobel, that's right. Yeah. Pretty amazing. And then you mentioned Notebook LM. One of the features that got a lot of attention was Notebook LM starting to do podcasting.
Yeah.
Taking your documents and turning it into a male and female pair of podcasters. I am not threatened by this. I know maybe some musicians are threatened by the idea that AI can make music. I don't think they really are. As good as Sora is, it doesn't replace real musicians like the wonderful Taylor Swift who's about to perform in about 3 hours. No, she will not be replaced by AI. And I'm hopeful that podcasts won't be replaced by AI.
Yeah, I mean, the ones that Notebook LM puts together, just in terms of how they sound and the conversational aspect, they're astounding.
It is amazing, isn't it? I mean, it sounds like
they're really shallow and they do hallucinate a little bit.
Yeah.
So
they're stupid, but they sound
fun.
great.
They do. They sound great. And, if you wanted just kind of it's one of those things, it's obviously early and it's not perfect, but it's kind of takes the idea that we had like a decade ago with Instapaper and Pocket and things like that, where, we were like, oh, well, what if I could turn this into an audio digest? And there were a number of startups that have come out over the years that, would hire voice actors or sometimes use AI to read those articles to you. And this is kind of like the next step of that, which is the AI voices have gotten good enough. And it is a threat, frankly, to, voice actors, unfortunately, but, for things like audiobooks and stuff like that. But, consolidating several sources and kind of giving you a digest, it's not perfect, but I like the idea of what it is. It's cool.
And we are all old enough to remember early voice synthesis sounding like, and Harry, you're probably old enough to remember like Castle Wolfenstein on the Apple II, and the German soldiers would go.
Yeah, I mean, on Blue Sky recently, I shared the TRS-80 voice synthesizer, which was I think $400, and you could barely understand it. And then there was this long period of an uncanny valley. Like in recent years, the voices have been about 90% towards being great, but that last 10% was really hard on your ears. And we finally have voices which you might listen to for an hour without ever wincing.
Good enough to be indistinguishable, probably.
Yeah. Leo, this might be your chance to localize, go global. They can actually turn into different languages.
I know. The technology now exists to take all of our podcasts and put them out in Chinese with my lips matching and everything. And 11 Labs has just announced a similar podcast tool. They do amazing voices. We've used some of them.
Yeah, those are really good.
Didn't you use 11 Labs to do AI Leo's voice?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a little imaginary friend who sounds just like me, but so I have 11 Labs. They bought my favorite news reader, which is called Omnivore. They just recently bought them, and so I'm now going to have to use the 11 reader. But they just added a new voice, which cracks me up. Let me see if I can find it. They just added so they have. I'll play a few of them. Like they have John Wayne's voice. They licensed these.
Being scared to death, but saddling up anyway.
Sure, I say that all the time. And they have, there's Laurence Olivier.
To be, or not to be.
That's not a recording of Olivier. That's a synthesized voice. Okay, you can stop talking, sir, Lawrence. But now they have. I got to play this for you. This is hysterical. Oh, where are the voices? Shoot. Apps. I don't understand them. Oh, here they are. They have Richard Feynman. You want to hear Richard Feynman? This is hysterical. I don't know why you'd want a book read in this, but it's pretty cool.
I would rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned.
That's Richard Feynman. They must have got Jerry Garcia.
Sometimes the light's all shining on me.
Other times I can barely see. Lately, it occurs to me what a long, strange trip it's been.
I don't know what Jerry Garcia, if he really sounds like that, but
I was going to say, I have no idea what he sounds like at all.
Yeah. You don't
you get a
usually
question
hear him
where
talking.
Audible. You get a question where Audible will be in 5 years.
I was going to say,
absolutely.
Right?
I was going to say that's the thing, and I do feel bad because like I've a good reader can make or break an audiobook for me, and
I know.
and there's some readers who are just fantastic.
Out of work soon,
and I feel like the highest end ones, like the Scott Bricks of the world, will probably always get work, but the people who are not as good, like you do wonder, like, are publishers just going to default to these voices? And part of me feels like, okay, well, if it's close enough, maybe that's progress. Maybe more books will have audio versions. But then there's another part of me that is very upset about the fact that what I do think is a real art form for people who can narrate things really well, is being potentially disenfranchised just because we can do it faster.
This is the truth. This is in every creative realm. This is what's happening with AI. And, I imagine it's already a problem that there's 18 million podcasts, but now that number is going to triple because half of them will be, somebody was just saying that there are, I didn't know this, a lot of AI generated documentaries on YouTube. And he says they're all kind of shallow and human, and I don't know, maybe that will go away also.
Yeah. But we've had those things, right? Like you've had a lot of videos that weren't completely AI generated, but were largely kind of piecemealed, like, reading with kind of a generated voice of, some, snippet they've gotten someplace, with kind of generic background stuff and whatnot. Like that's been happening for a long time. We can do it faster. And so on the one hand, that's bad because more of that can infiltrate the system and we create more spam. But on the other hand, like I don't know, it makes me feel slightly better to be like, this isn't a brand new problem. It's just maybe the velocity. And maybe ironically using AI, we could, if the networks care, or the platforms care, they could, block the uploading of some of the AI things.
It's harder and harder to do that, by the way.
Yes, it is.
Because these guys are really sneaky.
Yes, but doesn't mean but that's an interesting challenge too, right? Which would be like, okay, how just treat it like any other form of spam.
So what you can do with Notebook LM, it's the same two voices all the time, these same man and woman. But now you can do with 11 Labs. In fact, somebody's done it. They took the transcript from a Notebook LM podcast, fed it to 11 Labs, and changed the voices. So now you could have a podcast with John Wayne and Richard Feynman if you wanted.
It's going to be a real boon to the estates of all these dead celebrities.
Yeah, I'm sure they're paying them. I hope they're paying them a lot. Judy Garland's in there. A lot of famous people are in here. We live in a very interesting time.
Paid? I'm actually, I'm very curious how the licensing on this works, but yeah,
they have to pay for it. They're using their name.
I assume they have to. I'm just curious how the licensing has worked on this. Like
the estate.
They just go to I wonder if it's the estate or this becomes an interesting question. Is it the estate or is it the studio? Because did they just go to MGM and license the catalog, or are they going to the? See what I'm saying?
They're using her name. I think you'd have to.
Then I'm sure it's her estate. But again, I think that's going to become increasingly an important point for people to have in their contracts.
Look, here's Deepak Chopra. Now he's still alive. I'm sure he's getting paid.
Oh, he definitely is paid without a doubt.
Let's play a little Deepak.
He chose to,
Deepak Chopra.
When you align your thoughts with love, compassion, and gratitude, you open yourself to the infinite potential of the universe.
That's all I need, man. I'm done. That's it. That's great. I'm adding that to my podcast voice. You won't hear me much more. Hey, I want to thank you, Lou, for putting in. We love Om Malik. Used to have him on the show. Got to get him back on. He's kind of semi-retired. He's the Yoda of tech. Created Giga Om, and then became a VC. He has a blog now called Crazy Stupid Tech, and he writes. You put this in here, and I think, Lou, it's a great piece which everybody should read. Will AI eat the browser? And he's talking about the evolution of technology, really. And specifically in this case, he's talking about what Arc is about to do. Arc created the browser that I'm using right now. I really like it, but they are now moving to something new they call Dia, which is I don't know what. We'll see, an AI browser or something. And he interviews the head of the browser company, right, and Josh Miller, and talks about it.
It's impressive. This is the intelligent browser that understands what you like and what you enjoy, and Is able to weed out false information.
Oh, that would be good.
Yeah, it's just a really impressive thing. I think he's.
Do you trust an AI to do that? Is the question, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
OpenAI has been talking about building a browser. I think we may be headed for a shakeup in browsing in general, especially if Google is forced to sell Chrome to somebody else. And I wrote a newsletter about this recently. I mean, browsers go through these cycles of being exciting and boring. And other than things like Arc, the last few years have been kind of boring, and we haven't seen Safari or Chrome change much. Edge has been fun to see, but even that's been around for a while. And I think there's a good potential for AI to kind of shake things up. And it kind of feels right now like Chrome is what IE used to be. It's the 800-pound gorilla, and it's hard to see how it would be less popular. But there's a decent chance that AI could give somebody an entry point to be the next browser that everybody uses. And
not just the browser, Harry, search as well, right? I mean, that's how Google really makes money,
right? And the browser and search are inextricably linked to each other, particularly with all these people not getting around to changing their default search engine.
Right. I feel like I use Kagi, which is a
I do too.
Paid browser. You use it? Really? Yeah, I thought I was the only one.
No,
I love it.
I'm paying them $10 a month.
$10 a month to have a good search. That's surprising that people would do that, but interesting. How about you, Lou? What do you use for your search?
I don't use a search anymore. I just use Copilot or something like that.
You see, that's what Google's worried about.
Yes, and it should be.
And Kagi offered me Perplexity. That's how I got involved with Perplexity. And Perplexity now has
awesome.
a search tool that's an AI search. It's very interesting. We are, thank goodness, getting into interesting times. Now, we're also getting into the witching hour for Ms. Christina Warren, film girl. I'm going to let you go. Do you have a special outfit you're going to wear?
I'd probably just, because it was so last minute, I'm going to have a hat on. This is kind of a black Reputation. I've got a hood.
It looks good. You're ready to go. I think you're ready to go.
I'm basically ready to go. So I'm going to pass out. I'm going to leave. You guys enjoy the rest of the show. Thank you so much, as always, for having me.
We love you, Christina.
Lou, Harry, great seeing both of you. And everybody have a great evening.
Thank you, Christina Warren.
Have fun, Christina.
Have a great time at the Last Eras show.
Last one.
I got to hear all about it. You'll post on Instagram, right?
I will post on Instagram, and I'll talk about it next time I'm on.
Thank you, Christina.
All right. Thank you so much. Take care, guys.
We do have some final stories. We'll get to those in just a minute. But first, a word from our sponsor, ZipRecruiter. Love Zip. They're more than a sponsor to us. ZipRecruiter is where we go when we're hiring. There are so many things in life that take a long time, right? Sorting through countless emails, putting together a piece of office furniture, or like one of our listeners, Flo Connect, who's making updates to his medical billing spreadsheet and listening to the show while he's doing it. Those things, they're time consuming, shall we say. And if you're an employer, hiring could also be added to the list. A lot of paperwork. It's very annoying. I know from our own experience, when you get that email from a employee who says, "Hey, I love working here, but I found a job that's closer to my house and I'm going to give you my 2 weeks notice." It's not just a loss of a beloved employee, but it's like, oh no, now I got to fill that position. Until I fill that position, I got to do the work. And then it's going to take me forever to, thank goodness there's ZipRecruiter. It's been a lifesaver for us. ZipRecruiter finds qualified candidates fast. I know, because Lisa will post a job opening at breakfast, and before lunch, within hours, I'll hear her say, "Oh, hey, we got this candidate's fantastic. And here's another one." ZipRecruiter really works. You could try it for free right now at ZipRecruiter.com/twit. According to G2, ZipRecruiter is the hiring site employers prefer the most. The most. And part of it is this amazing smart technology that ZipRecruiter offers. I mean, when you post on ZipRecruiter, you're posting to hundreds of job boards and social networks with one click of the mouse. I mean, that's great. You're casting the widest possible net. And all of those applications come into the ZipRecruiter interface, and you can rank them, and you hire the right person fast. You've got screening questions you can ask them. There's a lot of useful tools in there. They don't go to your voicemail in your inbox. They're in that nice. They format the resumes. But there's one more thing ZipRecruiter does that's fantastic. Their powerful matching technology looks at your listing, then matches it with resumes they have on file. And they have more than 1 million current resumes on file because people come there looking for work, right? So they will look at those resumes and say, hey, here's some candidates whose qualifications match your requirements. You can look at those people and invite the ones you really like to apply for your job. Now, that is a magical trick because when you go out, reach out to a candidate and say, hey, I saw your resume. You look just right for our position. Please apply. They are flattered. They apply. You move right to the top of the list of employers. And these days, you're competing with other employers. That's a huge advantage. That's why ZipRecruiter works so well. Let ZipRecruiter find top talent for your roles in no time at all. See why 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. And as I said, for us, often within the first hour. It's fast. If you go to ZipRecruiter.com/twit right now, you could try it for free. That's the same price as laughing so hard your sides hurt or getting a compliment from a random stranger. It's free. ZipRecruiter.com/twit. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. We thank him so much for supporting This Week in Tech. Well, it's just down to us 3 guys now. We had to let Christina go to the show. And actually, maybe it's just down to you and me, Harry. What's going on? We have a blank spot.
That's my bad. 1 second.
He's trying to get rid of me.
You've disappeared, Lou.
Thanks, Anthony.
Lou MM continues with the show. He is, of course, the product manager for let me get it right.
Engineer.
Engineering manager.
Copilot for Excel.
For Copilot for Excel.
And Python, yep.
And Python. Or in Python.
Basically Python, yeah. Copilot for Excel with Python.
So let me ask you about that, because that's really interesting. Do you?
Sure.
So you can write Python code
You can write Python code in
spreadsheet?
Excel now. Yep. Yeah, that's been released. You can just go in there and just in a normal formula like you do normal formula
Not
today.
VBA
you just write Pi.
anymore or macro formula. You can
still
actually
do those.
do it in Python.
You can still do those, but the Python is there for your,
That's
for
awesome.
whatever. Yep.
Python is the #1 language for data processing, right? I mean, people,
right.
Yeah.
Right. And you can
That's
basically
fantastic.
pick any library that's in most libraries in the Anaconda library, and just dump the code in a formula and away you go. And now Copilot will actually write it for you. So you can ask it to do some advanced analysis of your data, and it will go and produce some pretty amazing graphs and charts and insights in there. It's really fun to use. I think I've had a lot of fun actually playing with it.
I remember when they announced that Python will be part of Excel. That was a few months ago. And I thought, that's really interesting, but I didn't understand how.
Right.
So that's really good. That's tight integration. That's really cool.
Super tight. Yep. And they have an editor. They just released a super cool editor now. So it's all VS Code based, just right in Excel. So you just pop it open and click you type in pi into the formula and the editor opens.
Is this primarily for data scientists, or I guess
it is not? It is not.
Uses Python.
I thought so. In the beginning, I would say, yeah, like that's basically who was playing with it.
Right.
But now it's just as simple as like you go in there and say, give me a distribution, give me this, do an analysis of trends, or give me a prediction, and it will actually generate the model, the code for it, and generate the model and produce the insight and dump the graph in the document right there. It's pretty impressive.
We were talking. I've mentioned the advent of code. We have a little group of people in the club that are doing that. And one of them, Darren Oki, used to code for, back office stuff for data for brokers, for finance. And he said a lot of the quants use Python. So I imagine.
Banks. Yeah. In fact, if you want to be an analyst for a bank now, you have to know Python.
Yeah. Wow.
So, yeah.
Very interesting.
But this is really not. I mean, the Copilot integration stuff that I'm doing, you don't have to know Python. Like this is just so you can do some really cool things with, the fact that Python has some more advanced analysis capabilities than just core Excel has. So it's actually a lot of fun to play with. Yeah. In fact, I saw a real estate agent recently dump all of their like comps in there and do like an advanced analysis, be able to do trending, and they don't know any Python. So
wow. That's a cool. You're in a cool part of the company. That's really neat.
It's a lot of fun.
We had mentioned, I think last week, that there was a rumor that the government was investigating Microsoft once again, but Microsoft has denied that, and then the FTC says, no comment. I think this is a story that has no legs, to be honest with you. So I'm not going to mention it.
Moving on.
AP says FTC opens Microsoft antitrust investigation. Trump administration must carry on or drop. So many times had it. Bloomberg, I think, started it. Everybody independently confirmed it, I guess, with the FTC. But the FTC is not talking publicly, and nor is Microsoft. So, and by the way, an investigation doesn't mean a lawsuit or a trial or anything. It just means they're looking at it.
Right. And it seems like it stemmed from the fact that it's with our partnership with OpenAI, right? I think that was where it mainly stemmed from.
The FTC, according to, this is the story from AP, FTC is investigating Microsoft's cloud computing business and related product lines like AI and cybersecurity, according to a person not authorized to discuss details publicly. You know, who knows what'll happen. One of the things I think, if I were a big tech company, a CEO of a big tech company like Jeff Bezos or Sundar Pichai or your own Satya Nadella, I would be pretty bullish about the next administration. A lot of that big tech, prosecution, I think, will go away because, as Trump has said about Google, the Chinese are scared of them. This is the playbook that Tim Cook used in 2017 in the last administration to keep Trump from putting tariffs on iPhones.
I'm I'm writing about this for my next newsletter right now.
Oh, perfect. Well, tell us about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people do see Tim Cook as a model because he quietly forged a relationship and was able to get taxes repatriated from other countries at a favorable rate.
That was a big deal, right?
Yes.
Apple had billions of dollars in Ireland.
And obviously, if the iPhone had become a lot more expensive because of tariffs, that would have been a major problem. But there was
That's what Cook told Trump, apparently.
There was an exemption.
You're just going to help Samsung. This isn't good for us.
And it did involve a little bit of kind of sucking things up. Like he led Trump on this tour of this Flextronics plant that had been around forever in Texas. And Trump talked about it. He'd opened this great new Apple plant.
Apple been making Mac Pros there since 2013.
Right. And nobody pointed out that it's not an Apple plant and it's not new. So I think one of the things I plan to write about is that part of the challenge of this is that being on Trump's good side involves not saying bad stuff about him, which,
what? That's called politics.
Right.
Anytime you deal with a politician, you're trying to get you're trying to get the best for your company. That's what a good CEO is going to do.
I do think it will be a challenge if some of the worst case scenarios pan out in terms of what Trump might try to do this time around. And you also have people like employees and customers who might not be thrilled if you only say these kind of guarded, nice things about Trump.
If you're a stakeholder of a big company like Apple, by stakeholder I mean you benefit if they benefit. You're a stockholder. You want Tim Cook to do what's best for your stock, for the company.
This is what they're going to lean towards.
You hold your nose and you say, "Hey, this is politics. This is how it is."
Although there were a few instances last time around, like particularly with the family separations, where you did see CEOs speak out against it. That came and went very quickly. So I'm not sure if it actually had any great impact on how that panned out. But I think it's at least conceivable it will be harder for this kind of very gingerly relationship between the CEOs and Trump to not cause new problems for the CEOs involved.
I think do you agree though that in the long run it's going to be better for U.S. technology companies, or maybe not?
I mean, this is potentially an area where we might be okay. I think
there is. You remember that there was this whole issue with conservatives and many in Trump's court and Trump himself who felt that big tech was censoring conservative speech, and they were mad at big tech for that. It's my guess that that's going to go away. They're not going to worry about that because they got Elon and he's not censoring, and they're going to really look at, and this is the path that Tim Cook used so effectively last time. What's best for American companies.
We'll see. I mean, I think Trump quite recently talked about putting Mark Zuckerberg in jail. So I don't think
that's true.
That the chances that that's going to translate into anything happening are probably incredibly tiny. But
I think he's gotten over that, and I think Zuckerberg just says to him, "Look, dude, we're an American company. You want American companies to do well, right?"
I think it's possible that Trump will continue to say whatever he wants on Truth Social or X or wherever he goes, but it won't translate into unfavorable situations for these companies.
Well, we'll watch with interest. Speaking of rhetoric, this is hysterical. Of course, there's this Salt Typhoon problem, which is the Chinese hacking group that has gotten into our phone system, and now we know has been listening in the phone calls of at the highest levels of the American government. You interpret that as you wish, but that's what they're saying. They're still in there. The government is trying to get the phone companies to lock down their systems. I don't know how easy that is going to be to do. In response, the FBI has warned iPhone and Android users start using secure messaging, not the built-in messaging on your phone. Use Signal, Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp. But then, and this is a great piece by Zach Doffman in Forbes, they also say, but make sure you only use an encryption technology that we have a backdoor in. What? They call it responsibly managed encryption. The FBI says, quote, this encryption should be designed to protect people's privacy and also managed so U.S. tech companies can provide readable content in response to a lawful court order, aka a backdoor, which, by the way, is why Salt Typhoon is in there, because of Kalia. What Salt Typhoon is doing is tapping into the lawful intercepts that were authorized by Kalia almost 20 years ago. They found a back door. This is just more of the same. So, by the way, what tech companies do provide responsibly managed encryption? None. None. Apple doesn't have a back door. Signal doesn't have a back door. Meta uses the Signal technology in WhatsApp.
Right. So does iMessage, right? Yeah. iMessage uses Signal protocol as well, so they all use
Does it? Is it? Or I didn't know that.
I think so. Yeah, in my understanding, yeah.
FBI Director Christopher Wray says the public should not have to choose between safe data and safe communities. We should be able to have both. We can't have both. Collecting this stuff is getting harder. This is the going dark problem, right? Because so much of that evidence now lives in the digital realm. Terrorists, hackers, and child predators are taking advantage of end-to-end encryption. So we don't want the Chinese to use our own wiretapping technology to listen in on the president's phone calls. We want you to use encrypted technology, but please don't use end-to-end encryption because we can't listen in either.
That's the same old, same old.
The hypocrisy is mind-boggling. Anyway, just thought I'd pass along that advice from the FBI.
You have to wonder how this is going to impact these companies, though. Like, there's, obviously fear mongering is a thing that does prevent people from moving forward on things, and so people think my data is gone or I need to move to something else. It could hit the profits of these companies.
You think Apple might say, "All right, well, we'll give you a backdoor to our encryption"? I know Signal never will, right?
There's a news story about Apple being sued over this stuff they did to detect CSAM, which they ended up not actually deploying.
They didn't do it. They're being sued. They didn't do it.
Yes. Well, they're being sued because they didn't do it, and therefore they didn't take action to make it harder to share that stuff.
You can't win.
What stops them from not, like, there's backdoors that these companies find, in like even iOS 18 has some backdoors. Like, what stops Apple from just not fixing it for a while?
That's what they could do. Celebrate, of course, is one of the technologies law enforcement uses, works right up until the latest iOS 18. Right. They found in this case with the assassination of the chairman of United Healthcare, the CEO of United Healthcare, a phone was left behind. And I thought immediately, the FBI is going to have to go to whether it's Apple or Android or Google, they're going to have to go to that company and say, we want in, unless it's an older phone, in which case they can use Celebrite. Exploit it. But Apple patches that every time. I guess you think they might drag their feet next time.
I mean, we say that they don't agree or they don't partner with these federal organizations, but that doesn't mean that they don't have another way of doing it. So,
right.
Yeah.
I guess, you know what? Well, see, I have nothing to hide. I guess I don't really care. Yeah.
Take my phone.
Yeah. Big, you know about the cesium clock. The atomic clock is actually measuring the vibrations of cesium. It's actually transitions, not even measurements. Well, timekeeping is on the verge of a great leap forward. There is a cesium fountain that's used by NIST to create the digital second. It uses cesium-133. They count the high frequency transitions. The transition of an electron of cesium-133 occurs in every second 9,192,631,770 times. And the reason that this is important is because if they could get a higher frequency transition, then mismeasurement, which occurs from time to time, would be less of an impact. You'd have a more accurate second.
Stable. Very stable, too.
More stable second. Well, it turns out they have found a way, apparently, to do that. In September 2021, scientists used strontium, which has a much higher transition frequency. In fact, it falls within the range of visible light. The transition frequency of cesium is much like that of, say, a microwave in the billions. This is much, much higher, which means by 2030, we may redefine the second. We may have a new standard for a digital clock. I don't know why I'm bringing this up. I think it's great.
It's fascinating. Nothing else. Yeah.
Yeah. It used to be they measured a second. Like in the old days, they measured a second by measuring the sky or so. I don't know what they did. Accurate timekeeping is always, this is a great story in the Science Alert. Accurate timekeeping has always been part of humankind's social evolution. At the Neolithic monument of Newgrange in Ireland, there's a picture of it. A special opening above the entrance allows sunlight to illuminate the passage and chamber on the shortest day of the year, coming up the winter solstice, December 21st. And that's what Stonehenge did, and there have been other clocks like that. Then there were water clocks. Up until 1967, a second was 1/86,400th of a day.
I think what's really fascinating about this is this will actually have impact on scientific research. Like, for instance, the search for dark matter or something pretty interesting there.
You need very, very, very precise measurements.
Yeah, I was going to ask what the downside is of the seconds we've already got.
Nothing. Don't worry about it. You're okay. It's fascinating because GPS uses a clock. It's very important, right, for GPS to work, to have a clock that is accurate with all the satellites, because you have to measure the difference in transmission of the signal at different angles. But they have to make an adjustment for relativity based on the speed of the Earth's movement and the satellite's movement. It proves Einstein's theory of relativity because those relativistic adjustments based on Einstein's calculations are accurate. And GPS works only because Einstein was right. So, I don't know what. Thank your local physicist. I don't know. One last story. We talked on Wednesday. Andy Anako brought up the fact that the original ruby slippers from The Wizard of Oz were at auction. They have sold now. They sold this weekend for $28 million.
Hopefully they'll get some wear out of them.
Do not put those on. They have her name sewn into it. They went through a whole bunch of stuff to prove the provenance, that these are the actual. There were 3 models made for the movie.
I was going to say, I thought there was more than one pair.
Yeah, there's one in the Smithsonian, I think. And so they compared it to that. It's actually a fascinating subject, which we talked about it extensively on Break Weekly because there was very little Apple news.
Are they the most iconic movie prop of all time?
I think they're just one of the three. That's all that matters.
No, but I mean, are those three pair like the most iconic movie prop of all time?
Well, that's interesting. New York Times asks that question. The previous record holder was Marilyn Monroe's dress from the 7-year itch. You know, the one where she stands over the subway grate and it goes up.
Right.
That sold in 2011 for $5.5 million.
Yeah, I mean, you have stuff like Christopher Reeve's Superman suit, although I assume there were probably a whole bunch of those.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Right.
DeLorean.
The DeLorean.
DeLorean.
That was a couple million, yeah.
An auction of the Wicked Witch of the West hat worn by Margaret Hamilton, also sold at that auction, sold for $3 million.
That's kind of cool that they actually bothered to keep them back then, which I guess they must have done before the movie even came out. And they did not know at the time that decades later people would care.
The slippers actually were stolen at one point.
Oh, yeah. Was it this pair that were stolen or one of the other ones?
Yes. The slippers were lent to the Judy Garland Museum in Grand Rapids. They were stolen in 2005. FBI agents set up a sting operation, recovered them in 2018.
It's got to be a movie someday.
There is, because the guys stole them, not because they thought, oh, ruby slippers, Wizard of Oz, those will be worth something. They thought they were actually made of rubies. No, they're made of glass. These nitwits that stole them thought, oh, we got shoes made of rubies. They weren't worth anyway. So the Judy Garland Museum said the museum was raising money to buy them back, but they were only able to raise $100,000, which isn't enough. For $20,000, though, the museum did buy a painting depicting the scene where the Wicked Witch's hands are zapped as she tries to take the slippers. So they got something out of it. It's $28 million.
Unbelievable.
Folks, I think we're off to see the wizard. It's the end of the end of the line for this show. Thank you so much, Harry McCracken. Miss you. I wish we had a studio for you to come visit, but at least we can do it this way. Zoom's not so very bad. I can't wait to read your article about what was it? The weather? What was it? I forgot what you were writing.
I mentioned too. My Google DeepMind story is already up on our site. That's a big feature on that. And then I'm still writing my newsletter, which will come out next Wednesday, which is about these tech CEOs and how they will attempt to deal with Trump 2.0.
Dealing Trump 2.0. And how do we get your newsletter? Where is that?
Go online and either Google or Kagi for Plugged In Fast Company, and you should get the page where you can sign up.
The name of it is Plugged In by Harry McCracken.
On Fast Company.
Yeah, and it is from Fast Company.
And you don't need to subscribe. You can also find a page on our site with all the newsletters.
Oh, you do want now? Cool. You still do that ride that you've been doing all the way up to the Golden Gate Bridge and back?
Yes, I went to Larkspur most recently, and I need to figure out where I'm coming next. And I have 2 e-bike batteries now, so maybe someday I will get
farther.
Maybe someday I will get to Petaluma by e-bike, which I think would be doable as long as I could charge once I was there.
That would be fun. Yeah, you could charge here. I ride a Rad Power e-bike and I love it. It's a lifesaver because we live on a hill and I don't have to worry about it. I could just pedal up the hill. What e-bike? I see you have an article in your Plugged In newsletter about e-bikes. Which one do you like? I
have a Gazelle. I've had the same Gazelle for 4.5 years, and I've done so many upgrades. I don't particularly want a new one because the one I have is exactly what I would like it to be.
Nice. Oh, I'll have to take a look at it. Why do you like it so much?
I like the mid-mount motor. It doesn't have a throttle, but it's really good for hills. Because
I like the throttle.
The motor is built right in the pedals. It's a Dutch bike. I think that's cool.
Yeah. I think Van Moof went out of business, didn't they?
They did, but then they were rescued at the last moment. Good. But yeah, one of the challenges is there are so many e-bike companies, and there are big ones, little ones. There are ones that do a lot of their own tech. There are ones that are basically just assembling parts.
The Rad Power is just Chinese motor, mostly Chinese parts.
Yeah, the Gazelle uses a Bosch system, which a lot of nice bikes do.
Oh, all right. It's expensive. It's more than $5,000. So I'll have to, when it's time to replace the Rad Power.
The one I wrote about was $5,000. Mine was not $5,000.
Oh, okay. You wrote about the T11 Plus. All right. Well, you see, every time I read these reviews, I go, I should get that. That looks good.
There are some great e-bikes that do not cost $5,000.
I will watch your plugged-in newsletter for your article that you're working on today. Harry McCracken from Fast Company. Great to see you.
Thank you, Leo.
Lou Maresca, he is a principal engineering manager in charge of, what is about the coolest thing I ever heard of, Excel Copilot with Python.
Yeah, it is really cool.
A supercharged spreadsheet. Excel has always been like amazing. I used to have a guy named Mr. Excel on the show.
Yeah. He loves this too, by the way.
I bet he
actually
does.
loves this. Yeah. It's funny because people don't think that new stuff come to Excel, but but this is just a lot of fun to play with.
If you're in school and you want to get a job, if you became an Excel wizard, proficient Excel with Python and Copilot, the world would be your oyster. Yeah. Like I was saying, we work with a lot of banks, and I would say 90% of them, some people have been saying, hey, I'm learning Python just by utilizing this feature. Yeah. I'll have to play with it. There is a guy on an Advent of Code who has been using Excel to solve the problems. But I guess if you have Python and Copilot, you probably, you got everything you need in there. Yeah. That's pretty cool. That's really cool. Lou, it's really great to see you again. Lou Maresca, well. Miss you, longtime host of This Week in Enterprise Tech. One of the nicest guys in technology. Actually, two of the nicest people in technology right here. And then there's Christina Warren. We miss her, but she's off probably right now in walking over to the arena so she can see the last era's tour. We thank all of you for joining us. We especially thank our Club Twit members who made this, literally made this show possible. Without your help, Twit would not exist. Club Twit is only $7 a month. We try to give you some real benefits for your membership, including ad-free versions of every show we do, video for shows that we only put out in audio, like Hands on Macintosh, Hands on Windows, Scott Wilkinson's Home Theater Geeks, the Untitled Linux Show. We do a lot of great shows, and if you want the video, join the club. You can also join the Discord, which is the best hang ever. I'm hanging out in the Discord doing the Advent of Code problems with a bunch of great people. See, it's not just talking about the shows. We're talking about everything that's going on in the world around us, all the technology, all the shows. And yes, there's even conversations about Minecraft in there. We've got the Minecraft servers back up thanks to a kindly club member, Lion Admiral 1981. Thank you, Lion Admiral. So if you are in the club and you want to play on our Minecraft servers, we actually have one that's a survival server. It's set very hard to play. And then one that's a creative server that is actually the entire build that OMG Chad did on OMG Craft 15 years ago, 10 years ago. And it's been added on to its incredible build. If you want to participate in that, join the club. If you want to participate in our club events, join the club. We just did a Ask Me Anything with Emily Forlini, the Home Theater Geeks recordings coming up tomorrow. We do iOS Today live in there. Chris Marquardt's Photo Time is coming up on the 12th. Micah's Crafting Corner is on the 19th. And we're going to do Stacy's Book Club. I've been reading the newest James S.A. Corey novel for this, The Mercy of the Gods. It's really good. Quick, you have time. You have a couple of weeks to read it. Really excellent. Yeah, I think even better than The Expanse. Highly recommend it. And so if you want to join us for the book club too, all of that, $7 a month, I think that's a good deal. And if you join the club, you also have the very good feeling that you're helping us continue to do the programming we love to do, and I hope you love to listen to. I don't pocket any of the money. I'm living off my retirement now, which is fine. But I want to make sure that we can pay Anthony and Benito and Kevin and the whole team. They work so hard. and keep the lights on and all of that stuff. We've cut expenses to the bone, but we want to keep doing this. And in order to do it, we need your help. twit.tv/club twit. It's only $7 a month, and it really does make a big difference. In the next months, before the end of the year, we need at least 5,000 more people to sign up for us to survive. So please be one of those 5,000. twit.tv/club twit. Thank you, everybody. We do this show every Sunday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern time. Thanks to the club members, we are able to stream on 8 platforms. Of course, it's in the Club Twit Discord, but it's also, let me count them down, YouTube, Twitch, Kick, X.com, LinkedIn, Facebook, and TikTok. 8 different platforms we stream live. All of our shows, we stream, not all of them, but most of our shows we stream live as we're doing them. And you can watch us live on all of those platforms. After the fact, on-demand versions of the shows are available on our website, twit.tv. If you go to twit.tv, you will also see a link to the YouTube channel for the video for this show. A great way to share clips. If you saw something you thought, hey, I'd really like my brother-in-law to see this, you can just clip it. YouTube makes that very easy. Send it to him, and it's a great way to promote what we're doing here at Twit. Of course, the easiest thing for you is probably to subscribe in your favorite podcast client. That way you'll have Twit ready to go for your Monday morning commute. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate your support. Love having you here, and we will see you again next week. And as I have said now, it's going on almost 20 years now, another Twit is in the can. Bye-bye.